I'd been reborn, and this time, I choose to willingly step aside for Jun and Li Xinxin. When Jun said Li Xinxin was in poor health, I gave up my job and volunteered to move to the countryside. When Jun wanted to bring Li Xinxin home to care for her, I moved out to make room for them. In my past life, when Li Xinxin was critically ill, everyone urged me to get a divorce, also their love story could end without regret. Even my own daughter accuses me of being selfish. But what they don't know is that I'm terminally ill and don't have much time left. Hearing director Wang mutter about how sensible I was being, I almost broke down in tears, because, against all odds, I had been reborn. I was reborn at the critical moment when Jun was pressuring me to give up my job for Li Xinxin. I decisively put down my pen and said to Director Wang, "Director, I'd like to give up my job to someone who is in greater difficulty and more in need of help." Director Wang stopped mid-sentence and looked at me strangely. "Didn't they say your fiancé wanted you to give this job opening to Li Xinxin? If you give it to someone else now, how are you going to explain it to him when you go back?" My fiancé, Jun, is seen by others as a handsome and refined child of high-ranking officials, a model officer praised by everyone. Everyone says I'm not good enough for Jun. If it weren't for my parents being martyrs, even being a maid in his household would be considered reaching above my station. I said to Director Wang with a smile, "Director, I intend to answer the call of the new era and pursue a love marriage. I don't subscribe to the old society's practice of arranged marriages by parents. Moreover, as the child of a revolutionary martyr, I must lead by example and proactively assist comrades in need." Director Wang, moved by my impassioned speech, clapped his hands repeatedly. His eyes filled with gratification at my high level of political consciousness. Seizing the opportunity, I submitted my application to go to the countryside to Director Wang, adding, "Women hold up half the sky. It's everyone's duty to contribute to building our motherland." As I left with the notification in hand, Director Wang's effusive praise for me echoed in my ears. In my previous life, I did not go to the countryside, because in just a few days, I was to marry Jun. We had a child soon after, and from then on, I stayed home to take care of the family. Jun remained in the military. As he was promoted and transferred to other posts, we began living apart. Jun was promoted and transferred elsewhere, but no matter where he went, he always took Li Xinxin and her son with him. Outsiders praised him for his loyalty, integrity, and commitment, but only I knew his true nature: cold, heartless, and neglectful. I stayed at home to care for the elderly and the children, all while having to clear up the rumors and gossip on his behalf. I watched my daughter grow from a helpless infant to a toddler, then gradually drift away from me, look down on me, and finally marry Li Xinxin's son, becoming a true part of their family. I was confused and furious, yet Jun accused me of being unreasonable and petty. His casual, offhand remark was the final straw that broke me. What's even more absurd is that no one even told me my own daughter was getting married. Afterwards, Jun showed me photos from the wedding and said, "Don't be angry, she just didn't tell you because she was afraid you wouldn't approve." In the photo, my daughter is holding Li Xinxin's arms so affectionately, as if they were the real mother and daughter. How long has it been since she smiled at me like that? It seems that ever since my daughter started dating, she's grown impatient with me, even repeatedly urging me to get a divorce. She said, "Mom, what you and Dad have is so pointless. Wouldn't it be better for everyone if you just got divorced? Mom, you know perfectly well that Dad doesn't love you. Why can't you just let go and let him be with the one he truly loves? Mom, you know perfectly well that Dad doesn't love you, yet you still refuse to get a divorce. You're so selfish. Mom, you're really not good enough for Dad. Get a divorce. Let him have some peace in the second half of his life. Who would benefit if I got divorced? Who would it make happy? And just who is good enough for Jun anyway?" It was only then that I realized the daughter I'd worked so hard to raise was completely on her future mother-in-law's side, feeling sorry for Li Xinxin. But why? Why should it be this way? Why was it me who endured the hardship, tending to his critically ill parents day and night at their bedside, while he was off enjoying a romantic affair with someone else? Why was it me who carried our feverish daughter on my back, running up and down alone to register and get her checked, then staying up all night watching the four drip until dawn, while he was tutoring, shopping, and dining out with another woman's son, even attending parent-teacher conferences as his guardian? Why, after I gave my all for this family, sacrificed my dreams, and lost myself? Does everyone in the end say I'm not good enough? He said it, my daughter said it too, everyone said it. Everyone's telling me to get a divorce, to just let Jun and Li Xinxin be together. But why should I? No, I absolutely refuse. Even though I know full well that Jun doesn't love me, And even though I know his true love is Li Xinxin, I'm going to drag this out and endure it until the day I die. Li Xinxin is critically ill. Her final wish is to take a family portrait as Shi Liujuan's lawful wife. Shi Liujun came to see me. He said he was sorry, and begged me, for the sake of Li Xinxin who is on her deathbed, to let them be together. I studied him carefully. He was just as handsome and refined as I remembered. Time seemed to have been especially kind to him. The added wrinkles only made him appear gentler. His back was still straight. From youth to old age, he had held up an umbrella for Li Xinxin for a lifetime. Yet he never once did so for me. In the end, he even poured the rain from that umbrella onto me. The more urgent he became, the colder I grew. In the end, we parted on bad terms, but in the end, I gave them what they wanted. With my death, I died on the day my daughter came once again to persuade me to get a divorce. Seeing that her emotional pleas and moral blackmail had no effect on me, my daughter stood up in a rage. "I wish I'd never had a mother like you," she spat out before storming out and slamming the door. What she didn't see was the late-stage cancer diagnosis that had slipped from my hand. What she didn't see was that I died with my eyes wide open, unable to rest in peace. In my final moments, I was filled with profound regret. Regret for ever giving birth to her, and even deeper regret for marrying Shi Liujun. Fortunately, I was reborn right before my marriage to Shi Liujun. In this life, I will live only for myself. Once home, I put away the rural assignment notice and immediately started packing my bags. This apartment, a 2-bedroom, 1 living room unit, was assigned to Shi Liujun for our upcoming marriage. With the wedding date approaching, I moved in, and we each took a separate room. As I thought about my plans for the next few days, I was also filled with hope for the future. I'm going to the countryside because I know there's a future titan of agriculture there. I want to learn from him, serve my country with my life, and realize my own worth. Just as I was lost in my beautiful daydreams about the future, Shi Liujun returned. As expected, he had gone to see Li Xinxin and her son first, and then brought them home. Li Xinxin, holding her son's hand, followed Shi Liujun into the house. As soon as she stepped inside, she said, "Sister-in-law, we're imposing on you again." To be honest, Li Xinxin wasn't a classic beauty with striking features, but her delicate, willow-in-the-wind demeanor was incredibly effective at stirring a protective instinct in others. As she spoke, her eyes flickered towards Shi Liujun before she lowered her head with a smile, radiating the tender, intimate affection of a newlywed couple returning home. Li Xinxin's son was clearly a regular visitor. He pushed past me and headed straight for the kitchen. Pulling their personal sets of bowls and chopsticks from the cupboard, one for Shi Liujun, one for Li Xinxin, and one for himself, there was none for me. It was as if they were the perfect little family of 3, and I was the outsider. The boy soon ran out of the kitchen, looking wronged. He clung to Shi Liujuan's leg and complained, "Dad, there's nothing in the kitchen. Did she eat it all and not leave any for me and Mom?" I once asked Shi Liujun why he let Li Xinxin's son call him Dad. He said the child was young and that I, as an adult, shouldn't make a big deal out of it. What's the difference between godfather and dad, anyway? Perhaps Shi Liujun really wanted to be the boy's father, which is why he didn't mind. Shi Liujun patted the boy's head, signaling for him to let go, then hurried into the kitchen only to find it was indeed completely empty. Li Xinxin's eyes instantly welled up with tears. "Have I upset sister-in-law?" she sobbed in a delicate, pitiful voice. "If so, I simply won't come anymore. But you still shouldn't leave brother Shi without a meal." I just sat quietly on the sofa, watching Shi Liujun anxiously comfort Li Xinxin and her son until he finally escorted them home. When Shi Liujun returned home again, I was in the kitchen cooking noodles. He stood frowning in the doorway for a long moment before finally saying, "If you're unhappy, just tell me directly. Why take it out on Xinxin and her child?" Perhaps sensing his tone was too harsh, Shi Liujun continued to explain, "Her husband and I grew up together. On his deathbed, he specifically asked us to look after her and the boy. The child is still young and needs proper nutrition. Xinxin isn't much of a cook, and since you have the time and know your way around the kitchen, I thought it would be good to have them over for a meal. If it bothers you, I won't invite them over anymore." Seeing I still hadn't reacted, Shi Liujun added flatly, "Shouldn't you, of all people, understand?" "Yes, that's right. After my parents passed away, I was taken in and raised by the Shi family, so I'm just supposed to understand." The next day, as soon as Shi Liujun left the house, I followed right after him. I needed to go back to the Shi family home. My engagement to him was arranged by his parents, the Shis, and there were witnesses present at the time. If I'm truly going to end things with him, I should explain it clearly to his parents, the Shis, and also inform the witnesses from back then, so that it doesn't complicate our future marriages. After packing my bags and buying a few gifts to take back, I slowly made my way home, just thinking that in a few days I'll be able to leave this place and start my life over fills me with motivation. When I got home, Shirley Jun had already returned, and some dishes were laid out on the table. "You're back so late, you haven't eaten, have you? Let me heat this up for you." With that, Shirley Jun picked up the plate and headed to the kitchen. As he passed by me, I caught the distinct scent of roses on him, Li Xinxin's scent. It was the fragrance of her shampoo. So, he must have had dinner with Li Xinxin and her son. They might have just left. "It seems my staying here is getting in the way of their time together." I said I'd already eaten and went straight back to my room. I'd pretty much finished packing in the room. I hadn't brought much with me in the first place, so I could just check the rest properly tomorrow. Since we've decided to part ways, it has to be a clean break. I don't want to leave a single thing behind. Tired from packing, I decided to go to the living room for a glass of water. Shirley Juan's door was open. The moment he saw me come out, he approached with the marriage application form and asked when I wanted to set the wedding date. I glanced at my luggage in the corner and said to Shirley Jun, "Marriage is a serious matter with many traditions to consider. I'll go home tomorrow and ask my aunt and uncle." Shirley Jun nodded in agreement. In truth, him filling out the application now was just a formality. In everyone else's eyes, he and I were already husband and wife. My parents passed away when I was very young, and with no other family to turn to, Uncle Shir simply took me in and raised me as his own. Uncle and Auntie treated me exceptionally well, just like their own daughter. Shirley Jun was the perfect child every parent talked about. He was handsome, a top student, had a great personality, was good at everything, and was always kind to me. It was only natural that I fell for him. Auntie sensed my feelings, discussed it with Uncle, and they simply went ahead and arranged our engagement. As Auntie puts it, no matter who I marry into, she's afraid I'll be mistreated. The only place she truly feels at ease is if I stay in my own home. In truth, the greatest wrongs I suffered in my past life were inflicted upon me by Shirley Jun and his daughter. I sighed. The debt I owed my uncle and aunt was repaid in my last life. In this one, I just want to stay as far away from Shirley Jun as possible. This time, I'm going to live for myself. The next morning, I was surprised to find Shirley Jun still at home. As soon as he saw me, he got up, went into the kitchen, and brought out noodles and soy milk. This was the first time since I arrived that I had breakfast with Shirley Jun. Shirley Jun suddenly spoke up. "What time are you heading back?" "I'm off this afternoon. Wait for me, and we can go together." It's been a while since I've been home anyway. I was taken aback and asked him, "Do you have the time?" Shirley Jun nodded. Getting married is a big deal. After all, there are a lot of details we still need to discuss. Besides, you're carrying so much stuff. It's not convenient to take the bus alone. Why don't we head back together? My instinct was to shake my head and refuse. I was racking my brains, trying to come up with a reason that wouldn't make him suspicious. The door to the house burst open, and a boy, his face streaked with tears, rushed into Shirley Jun's arms. Shirley Jun immediately held the boy close, his heart aching as he soothed him. "What happened? Shall we? Why are you crying?" As if a thought had struck him, Shirley Jun asked with urgent concern, "Did something happen to your mom?" Shall we stole a cautious glance at me before saying, "Mom told me not to come find Dad. Mom said Auntie doesn't like us. Once she marries Dad, we won't be able to come see him anymore, and we won't be able to call you Dad either." In my past life, it was this very boy who stole my daughter away, causing her to drift apart from me. How could I not despise him? "Shall we?" said the other kids. "All call him a fatherless wild child." Li Xinxin heard this and is in the other room, crying her heart out. Shirley Jun scooped up "Shall we?" and rushed out the door to comfort Li Xinxin. Without even sparing me a moment's explanation, I scoffed quietly. So it's true love after all. Now I don't need to find any more excuses to turn him down. I actually prefer to go back alone. Before heading out, I took one last look at the date on the notice and left in high spirits. Today, I'm determined to call off the engagement with Shirley Jun. I feel a bit sorry for his parents, but a forced marriage is never sweet. They wouldn't want us to end up as a resentful couple either. The moment I walked in, Uncle and Auntie warmly took my hands, asking how I'd been. Uncle kept glancing over my shoulder, and when he realized I'd come alone, he let out a dissatisfied huff. Auntie chimed in with some reproach, saying Shirley Jun was terribly inconsiderate. I looked at Auntie, my words caught in my throat several times. Uncle waved a hand to stop her, then looked at me with kind eyes. Duo, whatever it is, just tell us, we'll stand up for you. Don't be afraid." I pressed my lips together before finally speaking. "Uncle, I want to call off the engagement with Shirley Jun." Auntie's face went pale with shock. She grabbed my hand tightly and asked, "Did Xiao Jun bully you? Or did he do something to hurt you?" "Bully me? in my past life, he truly did bully and wrong me all along. I lowered my head in silence. A terrifying silence fell over the room, broken only by Auntie's quiet sobs. After a long pause, Uncle and Auntie finally spoke up to console me. Duo, dear, don't be afraid, we're here for you. That boy wouldn't dare mistreat you, even if he has someone else in his heart. We absolutely won't allow him to bring her into this family, after you marry Xiaojun. Just settle down and build a life together, things will get better with time, and remember, your uncle and I will always have your back. That's right, if that boy ever dares to lay a finger on you, I'll have your uncle go over and break his legs. You're a young woman, if this engagement is called off, what will become of you? Your parents entrusted you to us, how could we ever face them again if this happens? Seeing that I remained silent and vacant-eyed despite their lengthy attempts to persuade me, my aunt and uncle were at a loss. Auntie gave my back a firm pat, then pulled me into a tight, tearful embrace, sobbing, "Oh, child, what on earth have you been through? You've always been like this, ever since you were little, bottling everything up, never speaking your mind, and once you make a decision, there's no turning back. This stubbornness will only lead to trouble down the road." Once Auntie had cried herself out, she took my hand in one of hers and grabbed Uncle's arm with the other, declaring, "Let's go, we're finding a witness, this engagement is off, I'll find a better man for my daughter in the future." I followed my aunt in silence, watching as the witness wrote out a new statement, signed it, and pressed his thumbprint onto the paper. Holding the document, I finally let out a soft sigh of relief. It was all finally over. I knew my uncle and aunt had my best interests at heart. After all, in everyone's eyes, Lu Jun was a golden boy with a limitless future, the kind of catch everyone coveted. That's why they had to give my request to break off the engagement such serious consideration. It was so willful of me to end it with just a simple "we're not right for each other." But in the end, Uncle and Auntie, afraid I'd be wronged, indulged my choice. What happened in my past life is something I can't talk about. Nor am I allowed to. I couldn't tell Uncle and Auntie how Lu Jun neglected me for Li Xinxin's sake. I couldn't tell Uncle and Auntie that the daughter I gave birth to became Li Xinxin's little confidant. I can't tell my aunt and uncle that I died with unfinished business in my past life. Everyone says I'm the stumbling block to the happy life of Liujuan's family of 4. No one says that I am the lawful wife whose family was destroyed by Li Xinxin. No one says that. Despite having a husband and a daughter, I live like a complete loner. The engagement is finally called off, and I feel a profound sense of relief. Auntie held my hand with deep sympathy, apologizing to me over and over, though Uncle was quiet. As I was leaving, he told me with great solemnity that from then on, I was their own daughter, and if I ever faced hardship out in the world, I should come home. I know Uncle and Auntie truly care for me and treat me as their own. But I still didn't tell them about my plans to go to the countryside. The bus arrived very late. After getting off, I thought about buying some steamed buns nearby before heading home. When I reached into my pocket, I found a neatly rolled up wad of money, 500 yuan. Auntie must have slipped it to me when she hugged me goodbye. Tears welled up in my eyes instantly. Uncle and Auntie are truly such kind people. It's just a shame that Lu Jun and I weren't meant to be. As soon as I reached the building entrance, the aunties chatting outside gave me strange looks. I nervously smoothed down the hem of my shirt. Auntie Fong, who lives next door to Liujuan's family, brushed the sunflower seed shells from her hands, grabbed my arm, and pulled me toward a secluded spot, scolding me the whole way. "I don't mean to overstep, dear, but you're far too kind-hearted. How can you just invite anyone and everyone into your home like that? Your Lu Jun is a real catch. Half the girls in this compound have their eyes on him. You'd better keep a close watch. Honestly, your husband has no sense of boundaries. A widow's doorstep is always fraught with gossip. Everyone else steers clear of that mother and son, but you two just can't help rushing in to get involved. It's a good thing you came home tonight." With all that commotion this afternoon, who knows what kind of rumors would be flying around the whole compound by tomorrow. That Li Xinxin doesn't seem like the steady type. You know, you'd better keep an eye out. If anything comes up, just talk to us aunties. That's when I finally understood what had happened. It turned out Lu Jun had taken Li Xinxin and her son into his home, knowing full well his actions would draw scorn. He simply used me as his excuse. I let out a scornful laugh. So Lu Jun knew exactly what was improper. He was just using the guise of loyalty and righteousness to cover up his sordid intentions. I bring someone home the very day I step out. Is it impatience, or simply an inability to resist? But it's none of my business anymore. In just 2 more days, I'll be leaving this place. I looked up and met Auntie Fong's intense gaze. I know these aunties aren't bad people. They just love gossiping and sharing the latest rumors behind people's backs. Yet in my past life, It was these same people who constantly said I wasn't good enough for Shirley Jun, that I was the one standing in the way of his love for Li Xinxin. I thanked Auntie Feng for her kindness, then went home without saying another word. What was there to say? Expose Shirley Jun and Li Xinxin's inappropriate relationship and questionable conduct to ruin them. Ever since I came back, I've certainly considered exposing their affair. Li Xinxin and Shirley Jun destroyed my last life. How could I not be filled with resentment and hatred? But I can't break Uncle and Auntie's hearts. They've been so good to me, so good that I'm afraid my hatred for Shirley Jun would hurt them. As long as I still have reservations about confronting Shirley Jun, Li Xinxin won't be harmed in the slightest. If this blows up into a scandal, Shirley Jun would have to marry Li Xinxin to save face and honor his obligations. Wouldn't that be exactly what she wants? Flies don't go after a crack-free egg. When it comes down to it, Shirley Jun's own mind has already strayed. The moment I opened the door, the laughter in the room died instantly. Shirley Jun and Li Xinxin were wearing matching aprons, with Xiaowei playfully running circles around them. They looked like the picture of a happy family. Shirley Jun was the first to snap out of it. He put down the plate and walked towards me, reaching for the bag in my hand as he asked, "You're back." I ignored him and headed straight for my room, only for Shirley Jun to reach out and block my way. Seeing this, Li Xinxin picked up Xiaowei and walked right into my room as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I frowned and looked at Shirley Jun, demanding an explanation. Shirley Jun cleared his throat awkwardly before explaining, "Xinxin hasn't been well lately, and Xiaowei is still so young. I thought it best for them to stay here for a couple of days. I was hoping you could look after them. I figured you'd find out when you got home tonight, so I didn't think to discuss it with you first." That's when I noticed my luggage had been moved out. It was just dumped in a small, haphazard pile under the balcony window. Shirley Jun followed my gaze, hurried over, picked up a jacket with a footprint on it, and dusted it off. "I saw you didn't have much luggage, so I let Xinxin and Xiaowei stay in your room for now. I was planning to tidy up after Xiaowei finished eating, but then you came back, so I shouldn't have come back." Seeing that I was still silent, Shirley Jun said with a hint of discomfort, "We're getting married soon anyway, why don't you move into my room and stay with me for now?" Even though I remained quiet, I followed him inside and saw the marriage application he had left on the table. The space for the application date was still blank. After setting my luggage down, Shirley Jun sat down opposite me. "How are your parents doing? What did they say about the wedding?" I paused for a moment before saying, "Your parents are doing just fine, it's just that you should try to visit them more often in the future. As for the marriage matter, your parents want to ask around a bit more. There's no rush anyway, so let's just wait and see. I'm leaving in 2 days anyway. I'll just put it off for as long as I can," Shirley Jun suddenly joked. "As long as you go back, they'll be happy. What would they need me for?" I couldn't be bothered with him, so I just gave a perfunctory nod, wanting nothing more than to go to bed early. "Dad, I'm hungry," Xiaohui called out from the living room. Shirley Jun asked me to go out for a meal together. I shook my head and said I'd already eaten, so he went out alone. Before long, the aroma of food and the sound of the family's cheerful laughter drifted in from the living room. A doting father, a gentle mother, and a good son. Li Xinxin really does have a good son, at least better than my daughter. He will love his own mother. I shook my head, forcing myself to stop thinking about the people and events of my past life. I was jolted awake by Xiaowei stomping on me. He was using Shirley Jun's bed as a trampoline, completely ignoring the fact that I was sleeping on it. Seeing that I was angry, Xiaowei burst into loud, wailing tears. Li Xinxin and Shirley Jun rushed into the room immediately. I glared at Xiaowei with a cold expression and said, "Apologize." When he saw Shirley Jun, not only did he refuse to apologize to me, but he also played the victim first. "Daddy, I hate this woman. She doesn't like me or mommy, and she's mean to us. Daddy, please don't marry this horrible woman. Daddy, can you please make her leave?" Li Xinxin wept pitifully, tears streaming down her face. "Sis, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault for not raising Xiaowei properly. Please don't be angry. Look, even if you don't like me, sis-in-law, don't take it out on the kid. Xiaowei is just a child, after all." Shirley Jun, his heart aching, scooped Xiaowei into his arms to comfort him. Then he shot me a disapproving look, signaling for me to apologize to Li Xinxin and her son. I couldn't be bothered with these hypocritical drama queens. I simply stood up, grabbed my luggage, and tried to walk out, only for Shirley Jun to reach out and stop me. "What are you doing? It's so late. Where do you think you're going? Why would a grown adult like you get so worked up over a child that you'd threaten to run away from home?" Seeing that I was genuinely furious, Li Xinxin quickly took little Hui from Shirley Jun's arms and ducked into the room. Shirley Jun sat me down on the bed, and only then did he pull up a stool to sit in front of me. Just as he was about to speak, I showed him my wrist, the one little we had stepped on, which was now red and swollen. The words caught in his throat, his face flushing red with the effort. After a long pause, he finally pleaded, Shelby is just a child. After all, Shin has had a hard time raising him alone, so it's only natural she spoiled him a bit. You're an adult, don't hold it against a child. Shelby has grown up without a father, shouldn't you, of all people, understand him better? I know you don't like Shin, but what you're doing now is practically forcing her and her son to leave. You should go apologize to them. I let out a cold laugh. I didn't force them to leave, I'm the one choosing to go, to make room for the mother and child. You brought them home without even a word to me, and you threw my luggage out. Isn't that you forcing me out? You want to bring her home. So you use me as a human shield, even you know how shameful this whole affair is, don't you? Liujuan's face turned a mottled purple from my taunts. He pointed a trembling finger at me for a long moment, unable to utter a single word, before finally turning and fleeing in disgrace. That very night, I moved out of Liujuan's place. I made quite a scene, and quite a few neighbors poked their heads out to see what was going on. Not that I could be bothered with any of that. I didn't want to ruin Liujun, but if he was hell-bent on self-destruction, I wasn't going to stop him. There was a guest house right near Liujuan's home. That night, I finally had my first truly restful sleep since being reborn. Early the next morning, Li Xinxin knocked on my door with red, puffy eyes. She furiously demanded to know if I had done it on purpose. It turned out that as soon as I left with my luggage last night, rumors about her affair with Liujun had spread through the compound by morning. Everyone was looking at her with contempt, whispering and pointing fingers. Li Xinxin's eyes reddened with fury. Do you think moving out will force Brother Shi to marry you sooner? She spat. Or do you imagine that by making this scene, he'll abandon me and my child? Let me make this clear, she hissed. Brother Shi will never marry you, you can't drive me away, and you'll never win against me. With that, she covered her face and ran off. To anyone who didn't know better, it looked like she was the one who had been grievously wronged. Even in my past life, I knew Li Xinxin harbored hostility toward me, and I was aware she had always been in love with Liujun. I never once doubted the bond between Liujun and me. We grew up together, childhood sweethearts. Even when everyone said I was marrying above my station, I never felt inferior. It wasn't until after we were married, when Liujun repeatedly and unconditionally sided with Li Xinxin and her son, that I finally saw the truth. In his heart, they were the ones who mattered most. My heart finally broke for good. From that moment on, I wished for a chance to start over. If I could, I would leave Liujun behind, go out into the world, and see the magnificent beauty of my country for myself. I wasn't the least bit surprised when Liujun came to see me, after the scene last night. It was only natural he'd try to explain himself. Just like in our past life, he always had me do the explaining, preserving Li Xinxin's spotless reputation for a lifetime. Seeing me calm and letting him in, he breathed a sigh of relief. Don't be angry anymore, come home with me. I was too harsh last night. I shouldn't have made you apologize. I didn't say a word, nor did I agree to it. Liujun began to get anxious. Do you have any idea how dangerous it is for you to be out alone this late at night? Xinxin cried all last night, blaming herself. This morning, she didn't even eat breakfast before coming out to look for you. You're the one who should understand Shelby the most. You grew up without parents, and my parents were also. Enough. I cut Liujun off coldly. He stared at me in surprise. Liujun, you know perfectly well that growing up without parents is my deepest pain. Yet you use that pain to guilt-trip me every single time, forcing me to understand. Shelby, you know full well I can't stand Li Xinxin and her son, yet you expect me to put up with them, even bringing them into our home for me to look after. You said it was dangerous for me to run out alone at night, so, did you even bother to come looking for me? There's only one guest house near our home. You searched all night and never thought of it, or were you too busy at home comforting your precious Xinxin? As if I'd hit a nerve, Liujun raised his voice defensively. What do you mean, my Xinxin? I already told you, Xinxin's husband is my childhood friend. I'm just looking out for her as a favor to him. I let out a derisive snort. Childhood friend? Which one? I've never heard of him. Liujuan's breath caught. He'd forgotten that he and I grew up together. I knew every one of his friends. In my past life, I kept silent because I was blinded by what I foolishly believed was love. In this life, I keep silent because I can't be bothered to expose the disgusting truth beneath their hypocritical facade. You use the excuse of looking after your childhood comrade's widow to carry on with Li Xinxin, all while patting yourself on the back for being loyal, righteous, and true to your word. Why don't you see any of the other comrades stepping up to look after Li Xinxin and her child? And what do you think your comrades in arms really think about you and Li Xinxin? Don't think that hiding behind a cloak of morality will conceal the ugliness inside you. People aren't blind or stupid. Sure, Liujuan's face was a patchwork of bruises, yet he forced a calm tone and said, I know you're still furious. Stay here for a couple of days. Once I've settled Xiao Hui and the others, I'll come to take you home. I called out to stop Sure Lujun as he tried to make a hasty, shameful retreat. You were the one who said Li Xinxin was in poor health, couldn't handle heavy work, and shouldn't be on the factory floor, so you asked me to swap jobs with her. I've already spoken to Director Wang about it. Sure, Liujuan's face lit up with delight upon hearing this. He grabbed my hand excitedly and said, Duo, I knew you'd be the reasonable one. Don't worry, I will definitely marry you. Sure, Lujun didn't even wait to see the scornful look on my face before he eagerly ran off. What gives Sure Lujun the nerve to think I'd still marry him? He acts like proposing to me is some grand, heavenly favor, and I should be groveling in gratitude, as if I'd be an ungrateful wretch for feeling wronged, stripped of love's veneer. Sure, Lujun is just a hypocritical, arrogant, and utterly mediocre man, completely off-putting and nauseating. The next day, I arrived at the assembly point bright and early. Director Wang, concerned I might have trouble adjusting, even asked a few people assigned to the same rural post to look out for me. I expressed my heartfelt gratitude to Director Wang and presented him with the gift I had specially prepared. It wasn't until I stepped off the train that I finally let out a deep sigh of relief. To my surprise, I actually met the person I had admired my entire life, Fan Mingping. In my previous life, I was trapped in domestic drudgery, which wore me down for decades. In this life, I finally have the chance to step out of the household, the time to study, and the opportunity to realize my own worth. Apart from my regular work, meals, and sleep, I devoted all my remaining time to studying and researching agricultural knowledge, sharing similar interests and aspirations with Fan Mingping. The two of us grew closer and closer. By the time I met the travel-worn Sure Lujun, 2 months had already passed. I wasn't surprised to see Sure Lujun. Director Wang had written to me a month ago, telling me that Sure already knew I'd been sent down to the countryside. Director Wang said that on the day I left for the countryside a month ago, Sure Lujun took Li Xinxin to process a job transfer, only to find out the position I'd given up had already been filled by the widow of a fallen soldier. When Li Xinxin found out, she caused a scene right then and there. Sure, Liujuan's face turned ashen. I just don't know if that look on his face was because of me or because of Li Xinxin. Sure, Lujun furrowed his brow, looking me up and down before finally letting out a sigh of relief. I don't agree to call off the engagement, he said. Come back with me. I took a step back, putting some distance between us. A flash of hurt passed through Sure Liujuan's eyes. He took an urgent step forward, his voice tinged with panic as he said, Duo, I swear nothing happened between me and Li Xinxin. I only promised her husband I'd look after her and their child. If you don't like Li Xinxin, I won't see her again. Duo, in my heart, you are the only one who is my wife. You're the only person I've ever wanted to marry. I just listened in silence, then said flatly under his hopeful gaze, you should go back. Li Xinxin and her son are waiting for you. It was as if my words had extinguished all the light in Sure Liujuan's eyes. He was radiating immense sorrow and grief. Sure Lujun stayed here for a few days. I carried on as usual, going to work, eating my meals, and then going to find Fan Mingping. Sure Lujun insisted on following me around. Sometimes, when there were heavy boxes to move at work, he would step forward and move them himself, not letting me do it. He said, it's too heavy, I can't bear to see you lift it. I replied calmly, this box isn't as heavy as the ones in the workshop, and the work I do here isn't as tiring either. You were the one who said Li Xinxin was in poor health, who told me to swap jobs with her and take her place on the factory floor. So why are you suddenly having second thoughts now? The color drained completely from Sure Liujuan's face. He spoke with difficulty. Duo, I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Come back with me. Let's just live a good life together. Just the two of us. Okay, I refused flatly. No. While I was discussing the temperature and humidity of the rice with Fan Mingping, Sure Lujun couldn't understand a word and could only fret on the sidelines. Just like I used to be, an outsider, excluded. Sure Lujun hoped I would keep my distance from Fan Mingping because he'd heard so many people say that Fan Mingping and I were a match made in heaven. I said with a cold expression, there's nothing going on between Fan Mingping and me. I'm learning from him. Aren't you the one who should understand me the most? Sure Lujun was left speechless by my rebuttal. Reminded of his own past words asking me to be tolerant and understanding towards Li Xinxin and her child, Sure Lujun had taken leave to come. On his last night before leaving, he drank, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I saw him cry. Through his tears, he said he was wrong and full of regret, that the only person he had ever loved was me, from beginning to end. He said that our marriage engagement was something he had begged for, and that when he learned I agreed, he was as happy as if he had won the whole world. He said he had been waiting for me all along, that I was the only one he ever wanted to marry. He said he couldn't live without me. Shirley June kept talking and crying, and he didn't stop until he fell asleep. Watching him murmur my name in his sleep, begging me not to call off the engagement, I suddenly felt like crying, but also found it all rather absurd. In my past life, I was hysterical, I cried, I raged, I hated, and I was filled with regret. Yet he always stood apart like a detached outsider, watching coldly from the sidelines. When people said he and Li Xinxin were true love, he offered no explanation. When others claimed I wasn't good enough for him, he never defended me. When I was sick and dying, he didn't care. In this life, I let go willingly, stepping aside for him and Li Xinxin, his one true love. Yet, he's the one crying and begging me not to leave. Honestly, it's pathetic and laughable. Shirley June laughed. But every month he writes to me, and with each letter comes his entire monthly salary. He said he would wait for me to come back. He said he's already got the new place all set up. He said he's already seen Li Xinxin and her child off. He said he's already applied for a transfer to my location. He said he was going to spend the new year with me this year, but in the end, he didn't show up, because he married Li Xinxin. From then on, I completely lost contact with Shirley June. A few years later, after graduating university and joining the lab with Fan Mingping, I ran into Director Wang at the sidelines of a research conference. That's when I finally learned what had happened to Shirley June. It turned out Li Xinxin had seen Shirley June's transfer application. She was terrified that if he left, she and her son would have no one to rely on for the rest of their lives. So, Li Xinxin deliberately got Shirley June drunk and spent the night with him in the same room. The scandal that followed was huge. Director Wang sighed. Shirley June was forced to leave the military, and Li Xinxin lost her job. Those two are living in utter chaos these days, squabbling constantly. Their petty dramas are the talk of the neighborhood. What a shame about Shirley June. He had such a promising future, but now he's taken to drinking and brawling. Just the other day, he got into a fight with Li Xinxin that landed them at the police station. The whole mess even got him fired from his job. You, my friend, are truly fortunate. I felt so sorry for you when you applied to go work in the countryside. Looking back now, it was your parents watching over you, keeping you out of harm's way. I smiled, knowing just how fortunate I truly was. Fortunate to have been given a second chance at life. Fortunate to have been given a chance to choose a different path. I'm fortunate to have pulled myself out of the mire and realized my self-worth. Life shouldn't be just about love. There are also dreams and distant horizons. I saw Shirley June again 20 years later. I was a celebrated pillar of the scientific community, while he stood there in tattered clothes, holding a wailing infant. Shirley June's spine, which had remained ramrod straight for 2 lifetimes, finally bent. With red-rimmed eyes, he repeated his apologies over and over. I smiled calmly and offered him a blessing 2 lifetimes overdue. I owed you a happy wedding. Consider it paid. In this life, I am the fortunate one. But it's true, his self-deceiving selfishness did ruin my previous life. I have merely found peace with it. That doesn't mean I've forgiven him. Shirley June's back was even more hunched. He gave a bitter smile and murmured, "You have every right to hate me. I deserve it. It's all my own doing." Academician Qian, please proceed inside. Today is Peking University's centennial celebration, and I've been invited to give a speech, I said to Shirley June with a smile. I should be going in now. With that, I turned and walked toward my glorious future. No goodbyes. Let's not meet again in this lifetime. In this life, I dedicated myself to my country, focused on scientific research, and became a role model for others to look up to. Love may fail you, but hard work never will. Shirley June. A side story. After Duo left, Li Xinxin changed. She started finding all sorts of excuses to stop me from looking for Duo, and even set a trap to force me into marrying her. After we got married, she became hysterical. If I so much as speak to another woman, she starts with the passive-aggressive comments, "I merely attended a company party." And she threatened to come to my workplace and raise hell. My parents were driven to their graves by her. During yet another argument with Li Xinxin, I was knocked unconscious by Xiao Hui with a stool. Convinced he had killed someone, Xiao Hui fled in a blind panic. He was struck and killed instantly by a speeding vehicle. Upon seeing Xiao Hui's body, severed in 2 by the impact, Li Xinxin lost his mind on the spot. When I woke up, a new memory had taken root in my mind. It was this memory that made me realize, with utter despair, that duo and I could never be together in this lifetime. It was this very memory that made me understand why duo would rather go to the countryside than marry me. Leaving her in peace for the rest of her life is the best compensation I can offer. In my past life, it was only after Dwedwa's death that I learned Li Xinshin's critical illness was a lie, a ploy to force me into a divorce. That's when I realized the full extent of my mistake. I am filled with regret, but duo is gone forever. I had made it clear to Li Xinshin that I would not remarry, choosing instead to live out my days tending to Dwedwa's memorial tablet. Yet, in less than a year, my daughter was tormented and abused to death by Li Xinshin and her son. I reported the crime and personally saw to it that Xiaohui was sent to prison. Consumed by hatred, Li Xinshin pushed me down the stairs, ending both our lives. With my dying breath, I prayed that if given another chance at life, I would protect duo with everything I had and never again lose the one I loved. It turned out the heavens had truly granted me a chance to start over. It's a shame, I didn't cherish it again. The little girl in my arms let out a kitten-like cry. I knew she was hungry, she hadn't had a proper meal in days. I had no money for formula, so all I could give her was a bit of rice water. She's Xiaohui's daughter. The moment Xiaohui died, his wife abandoned the child and ran off. Now, it's just her and me, clinging to each other for survival. There, don't cry, Grandpa will take you home for some rice porridge, but, I don't have a home anymore. Story 2, I died on New Year's Eve. To surprise my boyfriend on his birthday, I cut my business trip short and came home early, but then, I accidentally discovered he was cheating on me. I immediately got into a huge fight with him over the phone and trashed the entire place. My boyfriend rushed home, and in the heat of an argument, he accidentally pushed me off the balcony. I went to my grave not knowing who had cheated on me. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself standing by the dining table, phone in hand. A spread of cold dishes sat on the dining table. Gucci's lazy voice came through the receiver. I'm at home, sleeping. I turned to look at the empty bedroom behind me. A storm of emotions raged within me. I can't believe I've been reborn. I cut my business trip short and came home early to celebrate my boyfriend's birthday. I spent the whole day preparing for our romantic candlelit dinner that night. When I called to ask my boyfriend what he was up to, yet he told me he was at home, sleeping. In my past life, the moment I found out Gucci had deceived me, I immediately got into a shouting match with him over the phone. I had to trash the entire place before he finally rushed home. I took in his disheveled hair and the lipstick stain on his collar. I was determined to break up, but Gucci refused to accept it. In the heat of our argument, he accidentally pushed me off the balcony. Until my dying breath, I couldn't understand why my usually loving boyfriend would deceive and betray me. I never expected fate to grant me a second chance at life. This time, I didn't make a scene. Instead, I dumped all the carefully prepared food and the birthday cake into the trash. Then, I restored the house to the way it was before I came back. After that, I picked up my bag and walked out the door. I waited in the car until midnight, and finally saw Gucci step out of a red BMW. The car looked familiar. Gucci considerately opened the passenger door for the person inside. The person who stepped out of the car in high heels was none other than the company's deputy general manager, Yang Xiujiao. She stumbled and fell right into Gucci's arms. The fur draped over her shoulders slipped to the ground, revealing the fullness of her chest. A woman of 40, she still possessed a captivating charm. Oblivious to the fact they were outdoors, they clung to each other, their kiss deep and unyielding. If it weren't for the biting cold, they probably would have started getting intimate right there against the car door. I heard Gucci say breathlessly, "Baby, let's go inside and continue." Yang Xiujiao's eyes crinkled with a smile. My legs feel like jelly, I can't walk. The next moment, Gucci swept Yang Xiujiao up into his arms. The two of them rushed frantically into the house behind them, my hand clenched into a tight fist, my freshly done nails digging into my palm. Yet, I felt no pain. In my past life, I was completely fooled by a scumbag like that. I met Gucci 4 years ago. Back then, he was a college student working part-time as a bartender. Once, when a drunk customer gave him a hard time, I stepped in to help him out. Later, Gucci asked for my contact information. He tirelessly shares the details of his life with me every day and gives me what he considers the best gifts. Even though I've made it clear to him that we're not a good match, even though I've been giving him the cold shoulder, he still patiently tries to win me over. On last New Year's Eve, he waited for me downstairs in the snow, getting covered in it, all just to wish me a happy new year in person. He pursued me for 3 years before I finally let my guard down and agreed to be with him. I offered him a place to stay. I recommended him for a position at our company. I offered him all the help I could, both professionally and personally. After every intimate moment, Gucci would hold me close and say with heartfelt sincerity, I promise I'll work hard to become a man you can truly rely on for the rest of your life. Little did I know, his idea of working hard was to secretly climb into our boss's bed behind my back. The bedroom light flicked on, two silhouettes, tangled in urgent embrace, were cast upon the curtains. I was filled with nothing but rage and sorrow. The man who once vowed he couldn't live without me, yet at this very moment, he was in my room, in my bed, making love with another woman. I dialed Gusie's number. It took him a long while to answer. Gusie's voice was hoarse. "You're still up this late?" I asked. "What are you up to?" He replied, "Just lying in bed, thinking of you." Of course, I almost gagged. I should have just walked in and caught them in the act. I wonder if he can still lie so shamelessly after being exposed to his face, but I held back. I can't be as impulsive as I was in my past life. Since he loves to play the devoted lover so much, I'll gladly play along with his little act. My voice was calm. "I'm almost home." Gusie's voice on the other end of the line instantly tensed up. "What, you're coming home now?" Watching the figure freeze behind the curtain, I smiled. "Okay, we'll be at the neighborhood entrance in about 10 minutes. Surprised, shocked, happy. Gusie fell silent for a moment, his voice trembling. Happy? Of course I'm happy." I hadn't hung up the phone. Gusie was probably too impatient. He just tossed the phone aside. I heard Yang Shuijiao's furious, flustered voice. "Wasn't Shen Man away on a business trip? What's she doing back now?" Flustered and torn, Gusie pleaded. "Don't be mad, baby. I'll make it up to you next time." Amidst a rustling sound, Yang Shuijiao cooed with feigned annoyance. "Are you going to touch her tonight?" Gusie replied. "I've given everything to you. I wouldn't have the energy for her." Only then was Yang Shuijiao reassured. "If you just behave, the Repulse Bay project will be yours sooner or later." Gusie immediately fawned. "Darling, you're the only one in my heart." I pressed the stop recording button and hung up the phone coldly. Not 2 minutes later, Yang Shuijiao peeked her head out furtively from the crack in the door. Then she sped off in her BMW, leaving nothing but dust in her wake. Of course, I didn't go home. By the time Gusie called, I had already checked into a nearby 5-star hotel. "I've been waiting forever. Why aren't you home yet?" "Just realized I forgot an important document. I won't be coming back tonight." Even though I couldn't see it, I could perfectly picture Gusie on the other end of the line, absolutely losing his mind. I gripped my phone tightly, my resolve firming. In this lifetime, I'll make sure he gives back everything he took from me. The next day at work, as soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I saw Yang Shuijia showing off her new bag to a colleague. I'm so envious that manager Yang has such a thoughtful boyfriend. As I walked past Yang Shuijiao, she called out to me, "Shen Man, what do you think of my new bag?" I glanced at it. It was a new Chanel handbag. It costs 50,000. Before his business trip, Gusie said his mother had suddenly fallen seriously ill and needed money for an operation. I gave him 50,000. So that's where all the money went. To impress some other woman. I smiled. How lovely. Back when Gusie and I first got together, he gave me a bag too. It's just a high-quality counterfeit. I thought he didn't understand, so I didn't call him out on it. Turns out he understood perfectly. He just thought I was a fool. That night, back at the apartment, Gusie dutifully fetched my plush slippers for me. "Darling, I've missed you so much these past few days you've been away." Hearing such an intimate term of endearment now just made me feel sick to my stomach. I changed the subject and asked, "Is your mother feeling any better?" Gusie looked utterly bewildered. It took him a moment to process the question before he quickly replied, "Much better. The surgery was a complete success. Actually, I spoke with his mom on the phone this afternoon. The old lady was rehearsing for square dancing in the neighborhood, full of energy. It seems Gusie has no intention of telling me the truth." After a pause, he stammered, "Sweetheart, about my birthday gift." I feigned remorse. "I was swamped yesterday and completely forgot. Is there anything you want? I'll make it up to you." Gusie's eyes lit up, then he put on a wounded expression. "My colleagues make fun of me for squeezing onto the subway every day, saying I don't even have a car to get around in." I caught on immediately. "I'll take you to pick out a car this weekend." In my past life, the birthday gift I prepared for him was the Repulse Bay project he had always dreamed of. Hearing that he was about to get his own car, Gusie jumped for joy. "You must be tired after a long day at work, sweetheart. Let me give you a massage." As he spoke, his hand moved to grip my shoulder, but I deftly sidestepped his touch. Gusie has been quite good to me over the years. He gave me a counterfeit bag. In return, I gifted him a watch worth 100,000. He ordered me bubble tea late at night, complaining about how grueling his job was. So, I found him this well-paying and low-stress job. He treated me to a meal at a Shaw County, a budget-friendly chain, saying he needed to save money for rent. I just let him stay in my upscale apartment. Looking back, I really was a sucker. I pretended to be hesitant and asked, Goosey Eye, could your family give me the bride price you promised a bit earlier? Goosey Eye looked wary. You're buying a car for me, and now you're asking me for a loan? Of course not, I said with a laugh. I'm planning to sell this apartment. Goosey Eye grew even more frustrated. If we sell this place, where am I supposed to live? He really has the audacity to freeload with such entitlement, I explained. Aren't we getting married next year? I was planning to upgrade to a bigger place, but between buying you a car this weekend and a new house soon, my cash flow is getting tight. Before he could voice his objection, I added softly, the deed to the new house will be in your name. Hearing this, Goosey's expression changed in an instant. You'd give me the house too, I smiled. Once we're married, we'll be one family. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. Let's put the house in your name, that way, you can hold your head high in front of family and friends. Goosey Eye, suppressing his excitement, immediately pulled out a bank card. Sweetheart, you know my family's situation. I can't come up with that much for the bride price right now. But this is all my savings from over the years, take it for now to get through this. That very night, Goosey Eye couldn't wait to track down his old landlord, all to help me get rid of this apartment faster. He went and rented back that same old, run-down little place he used to live in. Over the weekend, I took Goosey Eye to the auto show, where he set his sights on a car worth over $500,000. I didn't hesitate for a second and bought it for him. Goosey Eye couldn't stop grinning when he got the car keys and the vehicle registration. That very afternoon, he took the car out and didn't return until 2 in the morning. I used the spare key to get in the car, but he had already deleted the dashcam footage. Unfazed, I calmly pulled out a voice recorder from under the passenger seat. Just as expected, Goosey Eye went to find Yang Shuijiao. Yang Shuijiao's tone was laced with jealousy. Shen Man is certainly generous with you. Goosey Eye looked rather smug. A car is nothing, she's even going to give me a house. I just dangled a vague promise in front of her, and she became completely devoted and endlessly grateful to me. Yang Shuijiao snorted lightly. If she's so wonderful, why are you still with me? How could a lovesick fool with more money than sense ever compare to a mature, sexy powerhouse like you, baby? Goosey Eye fawned. Baby, just help me secure that project and get me promoted to department head. Everything I have will be yours from then on. The sounds that followed were too vile to hear. I tightened my grip on the voice recorder in my hand. I never imagined that my trust and care would become fodder for his flirtatious conversations with the person he was cheating with. My parents were always abroad, busy with their business. Apart from a bottomless supply of money, I never truly felt the warmth of a family. So, when Goosey Eye pursued me relentlessly for 3 years, promising to give me a home, I ultimately fell for his lies, and it even cost me my life. Fortunately, fate granted me a chance for revenge. Looking at the property purchase contract in my hand, a smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth. Goosey Eye, Yang Shuijiao, the more you laugh now, the harder I'll make you cry later. The moment he got the property deed, Goosey Eye was over the moon. That 300 square meter villa in downtown Jiangqing is worth at least 10 million. That very evening, Goosey Eye brought his mother to the new house. The old lady had never seen such a luxurious villa before. After wandering around the entire place, she couldn't stop praising her son for being so capable. Once she settled down on the sofa, the old lady began lecturing me in all seriousness. Shen Man, you know, my son has it tough. Money doesn't come easy for him. Now with buying a car and a house, he's under a lot of pressure. I smiled in agreement. Ever since we started dating, I've always made sure Goosey Eye looks good, whether in front of family or friends. When it came to giving gifts to relatives and elders, Goosey Eye would take the imported, high-end gift sets that others had given to my parents. At a dinner with friends and colleagues, Goosey Eye insisted on paying the bill, and he even used my black card to do it. Everyone thought he was successful in his career, with a bright future ahead of him. Little did they know that without me, he couldn't even afford his rent, which was less than 2,000. The old lady sighed. You'll have plenty of expenses with the wedding banquet after the new year, so let's just forget about the bride price. I then turned my gaze to Goosey Eye, who was seated beside the old lady. A flicker of guilt passed through their eyes as they said, somewhat defensively, the bride price, it's really just a formality. I gave a wry smile. True, we're all family anyway, so whether there's a bride price or not doesn't really matter. Only then did the old woman break into a satisfied smile. Now you're being sensible. I thought his family was just stingy and petty, but I never expected the demands that followed to be even more shameless. We can hold the wedding banquet first, but the marriage certificate, we'll only register that after you're pregnant and have given our Gu family a healthy grandson. I was taken aback. Are you suggesting I get pregnant before marriage? The old woman said matter-of-factly. In our village, It's common for folks to have the baby first and hold the wedding banquet later, she muttered under her breath. Besides, you're already 30, who knows if you can even have children. Gucci is 25 this year, I'm 4 years older than him, so I'll be 30 after the new year. The first time Gucci brought me home, the old lady was displeased, she thought I was too old for her son. It was only because Gucci begged and pleaded with me relentlessly that I softened and didn't break up with him. Over the past year, I've subsidized his family in more ways than one, but the old lady hasn't shown a shred of gratitude. She's always there, sighing with a long face. If it weren't for the fact that my Xiao has set his heart on you, I would never agree to you two being together, I sneered inwardly. Has he set his heart on me? He's only set his heart on my money. I was afraid if I stayed seated any longer, I wouldn't be able to hold back from unleashing my ultimate move, so I went back to the room to pack my bags. Gucci hurried after me to explain, sweetheart, my mom actually has a point, think about it, we work at the same company now, so it's already inconvenient to make our relationship public. Once I get a promotion and make more money, I'll make it up to you properly. My mother had a hard time raising me. Please be more understanding towards her and don't be upset. I remember 3 months ago, when Gucci knelt before me and proposed, I felt the timing wasn't right yet, and I was inclined to gently decline, but with tears in his eyes, he said he was certain I was the one for him in this lifetime. Even his mother's determined opposition couldn't shake his resolve to be with me. He wouldn't rest easy until the day he made me his wife. He wanted the whole world to know he was Shen Man's husband. That urgency and persistence finally made me say yes, but now, all that remained in this man's eyes was an unconcealable greed and opportunism. His once solemn vows now seemed hollow and powerless. It wasn't that Gucci had changed, he simply hadn't had a better option before. Looking at his hypocritical face, I curled my lips into a faint, wry smile. What's the rush? I'm not angry. Gucci's gaze fell on my suitcase, and he asked, puzzled, then what's all this? The company arranged a business trip. Only then did Gucci let out a sigh of relief. You sales folks really have it tough. His expression was one of concern, but I caught a glimmer of secret delight in his eyes. How long is this business trip? Hard to say, I replied, packing my clothes. At least a week. Gucci smiled, sweetheart, just let me know which day you're coming back, and I'll come pick you up. I nodded and walked away, dragging my suitcase behind me without looking back. Of course, I wasn't really going on a business trip. Instead, I went to the larger, more luxurious villa across the street. This is the new place I bought for myself. The following evening, Gucci sent his mother away and brought young Xiaojiao back to his place. They were all over the vast living room, on the sofa, by the floor-to-ceiling windows. On the bathroom vanity, they tried every position imaginable. Thoroughly enjoying themselves, Yang Xiaojiao gasped for breath. I've already spoken with the other executives. The person in charge of the Qian Shui Wan project will be announced at the company's annual meeting next week. Gucci redoubled his efforts. I knew I could count on you, baby. I turned off the surveillance feed on my phone, glass in hand, and gazed out the window. The company gala. I can hardly wait. The company annual party soon arrived. Both management and staff were dressed to the nines, and I was no exception. Today, I wore a limited edition haute couture gown and had my makeup flawlessly done. The moment I stepped into the banquet hall, I became the center of attention. Gucci spotted me almost immediately. A flicker of shock crossed his face, and he instinctively pulled his arm away from Yang Xiaojiao, who was clinging to him in her deep V dress. Yang Xiaojiao felt she had lost face. And the look she gave me was laced with hostility. Well, look who it is, Shen Man, the sales rep. She deliberately emphasized the word sales rep, as if she was afraid people wouldn't know what my job at the company was. She looked me up and down, her tone dripping with sarcasm. I know your family is comfortably off, but you're just a junior sales rep, dressing like that for the company gala. Aren't you trying to steal the show? Unfazed and without a hint of anger, I simply smiled at her. May I ask, Director Yang, whose show exactly am I stealing? Yang Xiaojiao was left speechless. She shot me a glare before turning and walking away. Gucci then cautiously moved to my side. Shen Manjia, why didn't you tell me you were back? To avoid affecting our work, we kept our relationship a secret at the company. In front of our colleagues, Gucci always addressed me as Jia, older sister. I raised an eyebrow. To surprise you, the annual meeting began. After each of the executives took the stage to deliver their speeches, the moment finally arrived for the acting president to announce the person in charge of the Qian Shui Wan project. All the employees in the audience were waiting with bated breath. The reason everyone was so invested in this project is that Qian Shui Wan is a newly developed, high-end venture with excellent prospects and substantial profit margins. Whoever secured this project would almost certainly be marked as the company's future key talent for grooming and promotion. Gu Xi had already started straightening his attire. He was wearing the bespoke suit I bought him last month, his hair perfectly groomed. Thinking no one would notice, he exchanged flirtatious glances with Yang Shuijiao, who stood behind the acting CEO. He looked utterly confident of success. I could hear people in the audience whispering, "Did you know, MS? Yang's new boyfriend is none other than Xiao Gu, who just joined the company's project department last year." No way, Xiao Gu is at least 12 years younger than MS. Yang, right? Last time, a colleague saw Xiao Gu splurging on a limited edition handbag. Guess what happened next? That very bag showed up in MS. Yang's hands the next day. She even admitted it was a gift from her boyfriend. No wonder. I was wondering why Mr. Yang has been so attentive to Xiao Gu lately. The way they look at each other is practically electric. I heard from the start that Xiao Gu got into our company through connections. Well, what can you do? One's young, the other's powerful and wealthy. It's a classic case of mutual benefit. Looks like the Qian Shuiwan project is a done deal. Then, on stage, the acting CEO finished his impassioned introduction of the Qian Shuiwan project, and the announcement of the project lead was imminent. On behalf of the CEO, I announced that the Qian Shuiwan project will be led by. Gu Xi was already eager and poised, taking a step toward the stage. The Qian Shuiwan project will be under the responsibility of Comrade Shin Man. Gu Xi's foot froze mid-step on the staircase. After a moment of silence from the audience, thunderous applause erupted. The smile on Yang Shuijia's face stiffened as she stood behind the acting CEO. She retorted almost instinctively, "She's just a salesperson. How could she possibly handle a project of this magnitude?" The acting president shot Yang Shuijiao a glance and said coldly, "Watch your words, Director Yang. Comrade Shin Man's work performance in recent years is plain for all to see. She was the one who secured the Qian Shuiwan project for the company in the first place. Putting her in charge is not only what everyone expects, but also the client's wish." Yang Shuijiao's face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and anger, and she finally stormed off in a huff. The annual party was in full swing, with colleagues coming up one after another to toast and congratulate me. Gu Xi sat alone in a neglected corner, nursing his drink in sullen silence. After the annual party ended, I was waiting for a taxi outside the hotel. I was stopped by Gu Xi, who reeked of alcohol. "You really stole the show tonight, didn't you? You didn't give a damn about what happened to me." I feigned confusion. "What? Didn't we agree we're just regular friends at the office?" Gu Xi's glare was more ferocious than I'd ever seen. "Stop playing dumb. You know exactly how badly I want the Qian Shuiwan project. Why are you trying to take it from me?" It was true. Gu Xi had mentioned to me that he wanted the Qian Shuiwan project. 2 months ago, he asked if I could pull some strings to help him secure the project. I told him I only knew the HR manager, which was how I managed to get him hired as an exception. As for something as major as a project, a mere employee from the business department like me was completely powerless. In the end, to advance his career, he immediately turned around and started cozying up to Vice President Yang Shuijiao. Perhaps emboldened by the alcohol, Gu Xi grew more and more agitated as he spoke. "Do you have any idea what you've done to my career? That project was practically in my pocket. All I had to do was land that project, and I would have gotten the promotion and the stock options. And now you've ruined everything. Shin Man, you just couldn't stand to see me succeed." He really thinks he's something special. He's forgotten that without me, with his qualifications and experience, he never would have gotten into our company. And the only reason Yang Shuijiao promised him a position and projects was because of their improper relationship. But there's no reasoning with a drunk. I hailed a passing taxi and sped off, leaving the still raging Gu Xi in a cloud of dust. Even from outside the villa, I could hear the commotion inside. The moment I opened the door, a leather ball came flying at me, but I managed to dodge it with quick reflexes. The scene inside was jaw-dropping. The kitchen and dining table were a complete mess, and the living room looked like it had been ransacked. Gu Xi's mom had actually invited over all the relatives' kids and her square dancing buddies to the house. 3 or 4 kids were roughhousing and kicking a ball around in the living room. Several elderly women were following along with the square dancing routine on the giant projection screen. 4 or 5 men and women were gathered around a mahjong table. The old woman saw me come in and said with an air of command, "Shin Man, go tidy up the house." As she spoke, she complained to Gu Xi's aunt, who was beside her, always away on business trips, never home. "I really don't know what our Xiao Ci sees in her." All the aunts and uncles quickly chimed in with flattery. "Out of all the younger generation in the family, your Gu Xi is by far the most capable. Not only did he buy a huge villa in the city and drive a luxury car, But he can also land projects worth hundreds of millions. Isn't that right? From now on, we'll all be relying on your goosey eye. I scoffed, figuring goosey eye must have let slip beforehand that he was going to land a major project tonight, so his mom called all the relatives and friends over to show off and celebrate. Seeing me standing still, the old lady snapped, "Shin man, what are you daydreaming about? Get to work." I didn't indulge her either and replied calmly, "Whoever made the mess should clean it up. What's it got to do with me?" The old lady planted her hands on her hips, glaring at me with a fierce scowl. "You're not even married into this family yet, and you're already putting on such airs. I'm not the live-in help, so don't expect me to do everything." Shin man, is that any way to talk to my mother? Goosey Eye was back. The old lady couldn't wait to go and tattle on her. He gave a heavily embellished account of my supposed acts of defiance. All the relatives and friends in the room fell silent, watching us without daring to make a sound. Goosey Eye, probably feeling he'd lost face, commanded me loudly. Shin man apologized to my mother. I decided I'd had enough. Goosey Eye, do you think I'm a pushover? Is that why you dare speak to me like that? Goosey's expression changed, and the effects of the alcohol seemed to vanish in an instant. The old woman, not understanding the situation, rushed forward and yelled at me, "If it weren't for my son, how could you be living this good life? You were the one who married above your station to begin with. And now you have the nerve to stand here making snide remarks. Without my son, you're nothing." Goosey Eye couldn't hold his mother back from her wild, slanderous rant. I had no intention of sparing his feelings any longer. "Goosey Eye, tell your mother, who's really dependent on whom here." Goosey Eye flushed crimson and fell silent. "Haven't you gotten enough from me? This villa, your car, your job, even the clothes on your back right now. Which one wasn't paid for with my money?" My words landed like a bombshell, leaving everyone present exchanging uneasy glances. The old lady's face stung with humiliation, a direct measure of how hard she had been boasting about her son's capabilities. Goosey Eye, gritting his teeth, was making one last desperate stand. "You gave these to me of your own accord. I didn't steal them." His words, in a roundabout way, confirmed that what I had just said was true, though taken aback at first. The old woman quickly recovered her composure and declared with a haughty air, "My son has a real talent for making women throw their money at him. A gift given is a gift kept. This house and car belong to my son." Some of the onlookers, unable to stomach the scene any longer, made excuses and slipped away, pulling their children along. Having swallowed his frustration all evening, Goosey Eye finally found his backbone and stood his ground. "Shin man, don't you dare think Goosey Eye, can't live without you." A smirk curled at the corner of my lips. "Oh, I'm sure you can manage just fine. You even managed to get young Jiao. I underestimated you." Goosey's mouth fell open, his face a picture of shock. You know about that." I pulled out my phone and played the recording at full volume, the conversation between him and young Jiao in bed on New Year's Eve. "I thought Shin man was away on a business trip. What's she doing back now? Don't be mad, sweetheart. I'll make it up to you next time. Are you going to sleep with her tonight? I've given you all my energy. I have nothing left for her. If you just behave, the shallow water bait project will be yours sooner or later. Darling, you're the only one in my heart." As the recording finished playing, the color drained from Goosey's face. The people present began to murmur, and the looks they gave the mother and son shifted from envy to contempt. The old lady was still bewildered. "And who is young Jiao?" I chuckled. "A senior executive at our company." "Oh, and she's a full 10 years older than me." Upon hearing this, the old lady staggered back and collapsed onto the sofa behind her, rolling her eyes in fury. Just then, several people arrived outside the door. Seeing the room in a complete mess, he flew into a rage, practically ready to chase the occupants out with a broom. The old lady mustered her strength and accused them of trespassing. But the other party produced a rental contract and told them to get out. Goosey Eye panicked. "This is my house." The other person spat out, "What are you dreaming about? You only paid 1 month's rent, and now you've wrecked the place like this. I'm going to sue you for damages." Goosey Eye was dumbfounded. He turned to look at me, his face a mask of shock and fury. "Shin man, you tricked me." I shrugged. "Your signature is right there on the lease. If you didn't read it properly, you've got no one to blame but yourself." Goosey Eye panicked. Without a care for the friends and family watching the spectacle, he hurriedly asked, "What about my car? Is that rented too?" I chuckled and said, "The vehicle registration is right in your hand. The car is fine." Goosey Eye had just breathed a sigh of relief when he heard me add, "You took out a 600,000 loan before. 50,000 went to the car, 30,000 to renting this villa. Remember to pay the bank back within a year." Gu Xi nearly fainted from rage. I left that troublesome place with a smile. I'm not the kind of person who holds a grudge over every slight. I misjudged someone, and I just have to accept my fate. If Gu Xi keeps his head down and behaves himself from now on, I'll simply pretend I never knew him. Yet he crossed the line with me again. Within days, the office was buzzing with rumors about me. They said I used my family's wealth to bribe the higher-ups and secure lucrative projects through shady dealings. They claimed I was being kept by a wealthy patron and was decked out in head-to-toe designer labels. There are even whispers that every time I go on a business trip, I'm actually out there sleeping around. Some rumors even claim I'm the mistress of the company's reclusive, never-seen CEO, Yang Xiujiao, leveraging her position as vice president, began subjecting me to all sorts of professional harassment and humiliation. She reported to the board multiple times, alleging misconduct on my part and insisting the Qian Shuiwan project should be handed to someone else. I heard from colleagues that Yang Xiujiao helped Gu Xi pay off a huge debt, and in return, Gu Xi follows her every command, utterly devoted. What used to be a secret, hush-hush affair is now practically public knowledge. I can easily guess what Gu Xi says to Yang Xiujiao. It was just the same old sweet nothings he used to feed me. After working late that day, I ran into Yang Xiujiao and Gu Xi in the underground parking garage as I was heading home. They were locked in a passionate kiss, unable to tear themselves apart, and proceeded to get up to some unspeakable business in the car with urgent desperation. I calmly took out my phone and recorded the whole scene, from them holding hands as they stepped out of the elevator, right up to the moment their car started rocking. I then sent this video, along with the footage previously captured by the villa surveillance, to an email address. Shortly after work began the next day, a burly man barged into Yang Xiujiao's office. Soon after, the desperate and pitiful sounds of Yang Xiujiao begging for mercy could be heard from the office. Someone called the police. The police officer rushed over and stopped the menacing man. By now, Yang Xiujiao had been beaten black and blue, her face swollen beyond recognition. Scattered across the floor of her office were photographs, all capturing her in compromising situations with Gu Xi. Also exposed were the evidence of Yang Xiujiao's bribery and collusion with the company's senior executives. The man who caused the scene at the company was none other than Yang Xiujiao's husband. Since her husband worked out of town year-round, Yang Xiujiao had always claimed to be single. In the span of just half an hour, Yang Xiujiao's career and family life were completely destroyed. The fallout from this exposed incident was so extensive that it even reached and alarmed the overseas headquarters. The chairman of the head office decided to come here personally to inspect and handle the situation. A colleague rushed to find me in a panic, saying that Yang Xiujiao, who had already been suspended, had cornered the chairman downstairs. From the look of it, she was trying to pin the blame on me. By the time I rushed downstairs, the chairman was already surrounded by a crowd. Yang Xiujiao was still going on and on. She accused me of misconduct, impropriety, using my position for personal gain, and cozying up to the client. She even claimed I had an improper relationship with the company president, which is how I secured the high-profit shallow water bay project. A colleague noticed my arrival, and the crowd automatically parted. With all eyes turning to me, I walked toward Yang Xiujiao, who wore a face full of resentment. Without a trace of fear, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Gu Xi hiding in the crowd, secretly gloating. Calmly and deliberately, I confronted Yang Xiujiao. You have no evidence for your slander. I can sue you for that. The marks from her husband's beating were still visible on her face, covered in ugly bruises. She was a complete mess. All traces of her usual grace and beauty were gone. She wore an expression of absolute confidence. Shen Man, you're just a lowly sales rep. How could you possibly afford a designer bag or high-end couture, if you didn't resort to underhanded methods? How could you possibly have so much money, and how on earth did you secure the company project? Gu Xi also jumped in, pointing at me and saying, she even exploited my trust to swindle me out of my entire life savings. Back then, she said she needed to buy a house and was short on funds, so she borrowed money from me. Turns out the house story was a lie. The real goal was to con me out of my money. In an instant, the crowd erupted into murmurs and discussions. With a smile, I pulled out the bank card Gu Xi had given me earlier from my bag. This card, your so-called life savings is just 8,000 yuan. Gu Xi retorted defiantly. What's wrong with 8,000? It's still my money. I tossed the card at his feet. Since you all keep saying I'm loaded, do you really think I'd scam a freeloader like you for a measly 8 grand? The phrase kept drew mocking laughter from the surrounding colleagues. After all, everyone had seen those incriminating photos and knew about the improper relationship between Gu Xi and Yang Xiujiao. Gu Xi's face flushed bright red in an instant. He snatched up the bank card and retreated into the crowd. The chairman, who had remained silent until now, finally couldn't hold back and spoke up, visibly fuming. I told you not to get involved with a useless, freeloading man like him, but you just wouldn't listen. Look at this mess you've made. You've become a laughingstock for everyone. Are you happy now, knowing I was in the wrong? I could only hang my head and say, stubbornly yet helplessly, yes, I was wrong. Everyone looked utterly astonished. Even Yan Shuijia was stunned. She asked in disbelief, Chairman, you Notion man. The chairman shot her a look of utter contempt. She's my daughter. Of course I know her. His words caused an uproar among the crowd. My father continued, did you just say my daughter is having an affair with your CEO? Have you lost your mind? How could my daughter be having an affair with herself? Watching Yan Shuijia's face turn as pale as a sheet, I couldn't help but laugh. My father handed over this domestic company to me the year before last, but I was reluctant to show my face there under my real identity. I just wanted to start from the most basic tasks, to understand the workflow and how the company operates. I also wanted to use this opportunity to weed out the bad apples within the company. Yang Shuijiao slumped to the floor, looking as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. I sued Yang Shuijiao for defamation, combined with the fact that she had embezzled a significant amount of company funds over the years. She was convicted on multiple charges. In the end, Yan Shuijiao had to reflect on her life behind bars. To my surprise, Gu Xi actually had the nerve to show up at my door. He knelt before me, weeping bitterly. He claims he was blackmailed by Yan Shuijiao, and that's why he did those things to hurt me. Yan Shuijiao saw us together on a date 3 months ago. She used that to threaten me. She said she had her eye on me, and if I didn't go along with her, she'd expose our relationship. I was afraid you'd get dragged into it. So I felt I had no choice but to give in to her. Gu Xi spoke with such sincerity, as if he were the one who had been wronged. But I'm not a child. How could I possibly believe such a lame excuse? Gu Xi was still putting on an elaborate act. The only reason I wanted the Repulse Bay project so badly was for your sake. You've always been so good to me, and I don't know how to repay you. I thought if I could just land this project, earn more money, I could give you a better life, darling. If you hate me, then hit me. I'm kneeling right here for you to hit, as long as it makes you happy. That one word, darling, was the last straw. I couldn't hold back anymore. I grabbed the broom nearby and swung it at him. Gu Xi didn't dodge or try to avoid it. He just stood there and took the brunt of it, enduring what felt like 100 blows from the stick. Exhausted from the fight, I finally dropped the broom, panting heavily. Gu Xi looked up at me. His eyes filled with hopeful anticipation. Darling, can you ever forgive me? I planted the sole of my foot squarely on his face. Get lost, you're making me sick. Since Gu Xi's own efforts were useless, he brought his mother into the fray. Now that the old lady knows who I am, she's completely dropped her former airs of arrogance and disdain. Man, it was Auntie's fault before. I misunderstood you. Please, for the sake of my old age, don't hold this against me. Our Xiao Xi truly loves you. He's determined to marry you and no one else. I won't stand in your way anymore. If you want to go get your marriage license right now, I'll support you. As long as you forgive Xiao Xi, I'd be willing to be your nanny for the rest of my life. I smiled and said kindly, I'm sorry, but we don't need a nanny. Later, Yang Shuijia's husband went to give Gu Xi a hard time. After all, no man can just swallow his pride after being cheated on. Gu Xi was beaten to a pulp, with a broken finger and a crippled leg, with no skills or assets to his name. No company would hire him. Now disabled, he wasn't even qualified to go back to waiting tables at a bar. It wasn't long before word got out that Gu Xi had been evicted by his landlord for failing to pay the rent. He had nowhere else to go but back to the village. But by then, the relatives and friends who had visited the villa that day had already spread his story throughout the village. Now, even a 10-year-old child in the village looked down on him. No one was willing to associate with his family anymore, let alone offer any help. Later on, Gu Xi left the village with his mother. Where they went, no one knows. To me, he was just a passerby in my life. I'm just grateful to be alive. I can still savor the present moment. That cheating scoundrel and his mistress finally got their just desserts, and as for me, I'm about to step into my own brilliantly radiant, wonderful life. The day I was released from prison, no one came to pick me up. The guard escorted me to the gate. Looking out at the empty street, he asked how I planned to get away from there. I didn't have a cent on me. The bag in my hand held just a few sets of clothes and felt light as air. Just like my life, it had no weight to it at all. Squinting against the brilliant sunlight outside, I smiled and said, I'll manage. I may not have money, but I have my own 2 feet. The prison guard hesitated for a moment, then fished out his wallet. No need, I live close by. it's a quick walk home, I said, declining her offer. I picked up my belongings and started the journey back. I had known all along that no one would be there to pick me up upon release, so I'd made a point of checking the map before I was even locked up. From the prison to my home, it's a 2-hour and 17-minute walk. It really isn't too far. In a year and a half, the city hadn't changed much. The stadium that was under construction before I went to prison was still only half finished. While waiting for the red light, my gaze unconsciously lingered on the stroller beside me. The mother noticed my gaze and gave me a kind smile, so I smiled and asked her, how old is the little one, / 1 year old, / so adorable, / I bent down and made a funny face at the baby. The baby lay in the stroller, waving tiny fists and cooing softly. The light turned green. I straightened up and stepped into the surging crowd. I finally reached home just before nightfall. The old security door was covered in dust. I found the spare key in the mailbox by the door, unlocked it, and went inside. A portrait of the deceased sat on the shoe cabinet. I picked it up, wiped the dust from its surface with my sleeve, and allowed a faint, shallow smile to touch my lips. Mom, I'm home. It took me a while to readjust to society, with a criminal record from my time in prison. Finding a job was tough. To get by, I took a job sorting packages at a delivery hub. After just a week, I collapsed in the warehouse and was taken to the hospital by a coworker. I never properly recovered after the abortion back then. It really took a toll on my health, and I just don't have the stamina to push myself like I used to. I had no choice but to quit my job. I signed up to be a delivery driver, figuring I'd save up for a couple of years before deciding whether to start a small business. These days, a bachelor's degree isn't worth much. A bachelor's degree with a prison record, that's worth even less. Being a delivery driver isn't easy work either, but it's definitely better than being a sorter. It's more flexible, and honestly, it suits me just fine. The earnings that weekend were pretty good. Right before I was about to clock out, I got a big order with a high delivery fee, but the distance was a bit far. I checked the battery on my e-scooter, hesitated for a moment, but couldn't bring myself to pass up the money, so I took it. The destination was a club famous for being pricey. When I arrived, I called the customer, and he told me to bring it straight to the private room. The takeout box was huge. Struggling to carry it, I found the room and knocked on the door. Hello, your delivery is here. Please sign for it. Just leave it there. The familiar voice made my eyelashes tremble. I silently followed the instruction and placed the box in the corner. The private room was bustling with a dozen or so men and women. The corner was piled high with boxes from various luxury brands. In the center of the room, a 3-tiered cake sat on a tabletop, exquisite and opulent. I tried to leave right after delivering the food, but was suddenly called back. Hey, delivery guy, wait a moment. My footsteps froze. It's my birthday today. Please, have a piece of cake. Thank you for delivering our food so late at night. I looked up. Perhaps because my face was mostly hidden by the helmet, no one at the scene recognized me. The woman standing before me had a delicate, lovely face. With a warm smile, she reached out and offered me a piece of cake. Her name was Chin. She used to be my friend. A sharp pain welled up from the depths of my heart, piercing me to the bone, nearly robbing me of my voice. I reached out and took it, my voice hoarse as I said thank you. As I turned to leave, I failed to notice the figure that had appeared behind me at some point. It was too late to dodge. I could only watch helplessly as the piece of cake hit the person's chest, staining their shirt. Jianjing looked down at his sticky chest, then back at me, saying nothing. The private room had fallen silent at some point. Someone called out with gleeful malice, that shirt is probably ruined, 100,000 yuan shirt. Do you think you can afford to pay for it? It's alright, don't be scared, it wasn't on purpose, we won't make you pay for it, you can go. Qinwan walked over, soothing me in a gentle voice while pulling out a tissue to wipe Jianjing's shirt. Jianjing stood motionless, his gaze fixed intently on me. The next second, he suddenly reached out and yanked off my helmet. No one's hair looks good after wearing a helmet for too long. The private room fell completely silent, even the music had stopped. I smoothed down my messy hair and reached out to Jianjing. Had your fill of staring. Can I have my helmet back? Liang Qiu, you're out. How is that so soon? Wasn't it a 3-year sentence? Finally, a voice broke the silence in the private room. I paid it no mind, my gaze fixed calmly on Jianjing. Qiu. Qinwan said, quickly grabbing my wrist, you're out of prison and you didn't even contact me. I have so much I want to say to you. I ignored her, my focus solely on retrieving my helmet from Jianjing's hand, but Jianjing refused to let go. With a bit of effort, I finally managed to reclaim what was mine. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate a 5-star review. A faint smile tugged at the corner of my mouth as I put my helmet back on and walked away. Liang Qiu, don't you have anything to say? Jiang Jing's words brought me to a halt. I turned my head, my gaze settling on Qin Wan, and said in a flat tone, "Happy birthday, Qin Wan." On the way home, just as I'd feared, my little electric scooter ran out of juice. I had no choice but to get off and push it along slowly. In the still of the deep night, a few luxury cars roared past me. I just kept my eyes on the road, carefully avoiding the potholes and bumps, focused solely on pushing the scooter. It was past midnight by the time I got home. I cooked myself a simple bowl of noodles. By the dim, yellowish glow of the street lamp outside the window, I ate in silence, the light and shadow playing across the room. Full but not yet sleepy, I took out my mother's photograph, sat by the window, and began talking to myself. "Mom, are you doing all right over there? Did you receive all the spirit money I sent you? Have you seen my child? Is he cute? Please, find him a perfect mother next time. When he's reborn, I hope he has better luck and isn't stuck with a mother like me. Mom, I miss you." That night, I had a rare dream, a dream of the past. It's been a long time since I last had a dream. That year and a half in prison completely wore down the last of the sharp edges I had left in me. I rarely think about the past. Life in prison was very regimented, fixed times to get up, work, eat, and sleep. The beginning was the hardest. I'd sit on my bunk every day, eyes wide open, counting the seconds, waiting for dawn. Eventually, I got used to it. After a while, I stopped thinking about anything at all. You can't live too consciously, it's just too painful. It's better to live in a state of numbness. It's okay not to feel happiness, as long as you don't feel too much sorrow. The version of myself in the dream was just too vivid, her smile brimming with life. That's why I felt a pang of sadness upon waking, wondering how I had become the person I am now. The woman in the mirror had eyes utterly devoid of life. I looked at my reflection from side to side, trying to force a livelier smile. When the knock came at the door, I hadn't even had time to let the smile fade from my face. My smile froze completely the moment I saw Jiang Jing standing outside the door. Seeing that I wasn't reacting, Jiang Jing had to speak up first. "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "Probably not," I asked him, my hand still on the doorknob. "Is there something you need?" He handed me a business card. "Call this person, he'll arrange a job for you. Thank you for your kindness, but that won't be necessary." He let out a short laugh, as if scoffing at my stubborn pride. "Liang Qiu, don't push your luck." I just stared at him, saying nothing. Jiang Jing averted his gaze. "Even though you terminated the pregnancy without discussing it with me, what I promised you before still stands." I thought long and hard, and finally remembered that before I went to prison, he did make me a promise. He said that once I got out, he would marry me. A smile finally broke across my face. Jiang Jing visibly relaxed as well, adding, "Don't be upset anymore. Wan also said she's very grateful to you. Let's find a time for all of us to get together." "Jiang Jing, that was just your one-sided promise. It doesn't count." I cut him off, watching the expression on his face slowly fade away, and said softly, "I'm not so pathetic as to be willing to marry a man who doesn't love me and has always looked down on me. What I've wanted, from the very beginning, is to be completely done with you, to have a clean break, even if the cost is sacrificing my own future." Jiang Jing left. Just before leaving, he said, "Liang Qiu, you're going to regret this." I soon understood the deeper meaning behind his words. During the lunch rush, after finishing a delivery, I came out to find my electric scooter, which I'd parked by the roadside, was gone. Along with the scooter, over a dozen food orders I hadn't yet delivered had also vanished. I stood by the roadside, phone in hand, staring blankly at the street. People hurried past me, everyone moving with purpose, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I had no choice but to call each customer one by one, compensate them for their losses, and then report it to the police. The police said the surveillance cameras in that area were down, and while they would do their best to help find the car, they couldn't guarantee it would be recovered. I walked out of the police station, looked at the string of complaints and bad reviews on my phone, took a deep breath, and gave a weak, wry smile. There was still some money left in my account, enough to buy another electric scooter, but what if the second one gets stolen too? I crouched by the roadside, lost in thought for a long time, until a little girl with a backpack timidly tapped my shoulder and asked, "Are you okay, miss?" I smiled at her and said, "I'm a little tired, so I'm just taking a rest here." She thought for a moment, then pulled a piece of candy from her pocket and handed it to me. "Here, have some candy." "Thank you." That piece of milk candy gave me a bit of energy back. As soon as I got home, I started working on my resume. Legitimate companies won't hire me, but there are always some smaller firms with less stringent requirements. It's just that my criminal record is right there, and in every interview, I can never escape the HR manager asking about it. Have you been to prison? I nodded and said yes. So, you went to prison for a hit and run. That's right, but you don't have a driver's license, correct? The HR representative fell silent. Then politely handed my resume back, saying they needed more time to consider. It reminded me of when Jiang Jing told me that Qinwan was too frail to endure the hardships of prison. It never crossed his mind that I didn't have a driver's license, and that if convicted, I would face a harsher sentence for driving without one. But then again, that's to be expected. How could I possibly ask someone who never gave me a second thought to see things from my perspective? All my job interviews went unanswered. To avoid depleting my savings, I started applying for jobs like waiting tables. What I never expected was that no one would even hire me to be a server. As I walked out of the last restaurant, the sky opened up and it began to pour. I stood at the restaurant entrance, watching the rain drip from the eaves, before slowly stepping out into the downpour. The rain wasn't heavy, at least not enough to blur my vision, yet my vision blurred all the same. It was a peculiar kind of anguish, the anguish of feeling deeply wronged, yet having no one to turn to and confide in. Jiang Jing stood waiting for me under an umbrella at the foot of my building. I spotted him from a distance, about 10 meters away. I stopped in my tracks, unwilling to go any further. He noticed me, started walking towards me, then halted just 3 steps away. Have you come to your senses? He asked me. I looked at him earnestly. Jiang Jing, you said you'd be grateful to me for the rest of your life. So, gratitude, it's not supposed to be like this, I said. So, you can't treat me this way. My mind must have been addled by the rain, so I couldn't see how utterly hollow and powerless my words were. Of course he could do this to me. I have nothing, no family background to rival his, no wealth to support me, not even any family or friends. He can freely humiliate me, slander me, and pin one false accusation after another on me. I just never expected him to despise me so much, that he wouldn't even leave me a way out. He finally walked, step by step, until he stood before me. That umbrella shielded me from the torrential rain pouring down. It blotted out all my light. In the pitch darkness, Jiang Jing reached out, caressed my cheek, and told me this was the price I had to pay to be even with him. Then what do you want me to do? I murmured to him. You don't want my love, and you don't want us to be even, so my only choice is to die. Is that it? I had a warm dream. In my dream, I nestled in my mother's arms. She patted my back gently, whispering soothing words to comfort me and stop my tears. I whimpered softly, clinging to her, and said, Mommy, I'm in so much pain. Her heart aching for me. She asked where it hurt. My head hurts, my hands hurt, my feet hurt, I said, my voice full of grievance. Everything hurts, but my heart hurts the most. Mom, living is so hard. Can I come to you? She just held me gently in her arms, saying nothing, and then I knew, she didn't want me either. Who would ever want me? No one at all. And just like that, the dream was over. My eyes were open, staring unfocused at the familiar ceiling above me. Once the days had passed, I slowly extricated myself from Jiang Jing's embrace. He started, instinctively pulling me closer again, but upon meeting my gaze, he froze and let go. I managed to crawl to the foot of the bed and curl up into a ball. The room was pitch dark. I had no idea what time it was, and Jiang Jing's presence beside me made me feel profoundly unsafe, so I asked him, could you leave? Perhaps the night softened the icy aura around Jiang Jing. He didn't seem as unapproachable as before. He just let out a soft sigh and asked me what I really wanted. I thought in a daze, what is it that I want to do? I just wanted to live a decent life. But he wouldn't give me that chance, so I turned the question back on him. Jiang Jing, what about you? What is it you really want? He sat on the edge of the bed, his back to the moonlight, quietly watching me, but I just lowered my gaze, staring at the antique pattern on the bedsheet, and said in a low voice, what more do you want from me? I have nothing left to give you. Don't you want to marry me anymore? Jiang Jing, I never once thought about marrying you. I smiled soundlessly. How could I ever dare to hope for that? Liang Qiu, do you love me? I don't understand why Jiang Jing would ask that. I thought that between him and me, from the very beginning until now, this was the least important thing, but I answered him anyway. Jiang Jing, I loved you, but not because you were rich or handsome. It was simply because I thought you were a good person. The day my mother died in the car accident, I was crying my heart out at the hospital. So many people passed by, but you were the only one who offered me a handkerchief. Everyone thought that Jiang Jing and I first met at the freshman mixer during our first year of university, but that wasn't the case. I had actually met him back in my final year of high school. It was the darkest day of my life. In the middle of class, my homeroom teacher suddenly called me out and told me something had happened to my mom. I rushed to the hospital in a panic, only to find my mother's cold, solitary body. It was a hit and run. The driver fled the scene. My mother never even made it to the hospital, gone without a chance for a final word. We never got to say goodbye. I was too young when my father passed to fully grasp the pain, but when my mother died, I was on the cusp of adulthood. That was the first time I truly understood how sudden life's partings can be. Not everyone gets a proper goodbye. I hid in the stairwell and cried until I was nearly faint. But scenes like that are all too common in a hospital. Every wall, every brick in that hospital has absorbed countless tears. No one dares to stop, for their own life is already hard enough. They simply don't have the courage left to shoulder another's suffering. Stop crying, you're giving me a headache. Someone sat down beside me and handed me a handkerchief. I was choked with sobs, my body nearly spent. Sweat and tears mingled, leaving me drenched as if I'd just been pulled from the water. He pulled out a cigarette in front of me and asked if I minded. I just kept crying, not giving him an answer. He clicked his tongue, just holding the cigarette between his lips without lighting it. His mood was completely unaffected by me, his tone cold from start to finish. Grow up, every meeting is the beginning of a parting. No matter how close two people are, one of them always has to leave first. Life goes on without anyone, so what's the big deal? He said my crying was too loud, but he stayed with me for a long time. In moments like that, I just needed someone by my side. It's like being in a sea of people. Even if I have to be alone from now on, it doesn't feel too lonely. In the end, he was called away by someone else. Someone pushed open the stairwell door and called his name, Jiangjing. Time to go home. Jiangjing stood up, brushed the dust off his clothes, and left without looking back. He didn't say goodbye to me. We were just passing ships in the night, so a farewell didn't seem necessary, but I remembered his name. It wasn't until the freshman mixer that my new roommate, Qin Wan, walked over with him on her arm, beaming as she introduced him. Qiu, this is my boyfriend, Jiangjing. From the complete lack of recognition in his eyes, I knew he didn't remember me at all, but it's okay. I'll always remember this kindness. I repaid this debt of gratitude twofold to Qin Wan. That's how Qin Wan and I became friends, though sometimes I regret it, wishing I had never met Jiangjing in the first place. He offered me a faint warmth, like a flickering, dying spark on a frigid winter's night, yet, I paid for it with all the happiness of the rest of my life. Perhaps some things are truly fated. My mother's death was caused by a hit-and-run driver. The charge that put me in prison was also hit and run. I guess this is the universe's way of telling me that the warmth I never deserved had to be paid back in the end. Jiangjing, do you have any idea what was going through my mind as I sat in that courtroom, listening to the judge hand down the verdict? You made me feel like I was the driver who hit and killed my own mother and then fled the scene all those years ago. Enough. Not another word. Jiangjing shot to his feet. His towering frame in the darkness was like a terrifying monster, baring its hideous fangs as if to devour me whole. I curled my limbs tightly, laughing as I looked at him. Jiangjing, why are you so angry? Is it because I aborted your child? Do you know how I did it? In the dead of night, I waited until everyone was asleep, then I rammed my belly against the corner of the single bed. It was excruciating, but it worked. I only had to do it twice, and it was over. I lost so much blood. But I held on until dawn before finally letting the police take me to the hospital. I'll never have children now, so even though I've been to prison, I'm poor, and I'm a failure. At least I don't have to worry about a child of my own blood coming into this world to suffer with me. Jiangjing closed in on me, grabbed my ankle, and yanked me toward him. I screamed and struggled, but he was so much stronger. He just held me tight against his chest, and no matter how hard I scratched, bit, or hit him, he wouldn't let go. Finally, I was exhausted, the world spun around me, and I thought I was going to die. Jiangjing, do you know why I'm saying all this? Because I'm a pathetic creature no one wants. I can't fight you. All I can do is tear open my own wounds, over and over, to remind myself that the price of loving you is too high, a price I can't afford to pay. Let me go, or let me die, you choose. Let's just be done with this, okay? No more of this back and forth. But Jiangjing just held me tighter. Again and again, he commanded in my ear, enough, stop talking. The voice went from low and deep to hoarse. It ended in a choked sob. When I came to again, I found myself in a hospital. My limbs were still weak and limp, and my head felt heavy, as if filled with concrete. I met Jiangjing's gaze. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring intently at me. I calmly held his stare. After a long moment, I turned over, giving him my back. Jiangjing gently lifted his hand and freed the foreline I had been lying on. Do you really want to settle all scores between us? I won't say a word, then promise me one last thing. Hearing this, I just closed my eyes wearily. I'd rather not. He never keeps his word. He was the one who said it back then. If I went to prison in Qinwan's place, we'd be square. Liang Qiu, do you hate me now? Why do you keep asking me what I really feel about you? Does it even matter? He shot back, doesn't it? It's not important, you're right, it really isn't important. Jiang Jing toyed with the lighter in his hand. I'm planning a wedding, and I'm still missing a bride. I opened my eyes. Marry me, and I'll set you free. So it's true that people can laugh in utter fury. Jiang Jing, have you lost your mind? So many people want to marry you. Why on earth would you choose me? Have you forgotten how you cursed me? Calling me shameless for climbing into your bed just to get my foot in your family's door. You never explicitly stated you were unwilling to marry me, so all my wedding preparations were made with you in mind, Jiang Jing said. A fortune was spent, you couldn't possibly afford to repay it. I could only find the whole situation absurd. Liang Qiu, you're not even afraid of death, so why are you afraid to take this final gamble with me? Jiang Jing stood up, walked to the window, and turned his head to look at me intently. What if you win? I could even send you abroad. Your English is good, so living and communicating overseas wouldn't be a problem. They won't know about your past, that you've been in prison. You could have a completely fresh start. I didn't believe a single word he said, yet I couldn't suppress the flicker of hope rising in my heart. You'd really let me go, really? But you clearly despise me. Jiang Jing put the unlit cigarette back between his lips. Yeah, I can't stand you, but I said I'd marry you. And I'm not one to leave things half-finished. I've never been able to figure Jiang Jing out, and honestly, that's to be expected. Even after sharing the most intimate of acts, we never really got to know each other. We never held hands, never had a heart-to-heart. Throughout all those long years at university, we weren't even friends. He's my roommate's boyfriend, a handsome, loaded rich kid. I've always known my place and kept a respectful distance. The closest we ever got was in a haunted house. He mistook me for Qin Wan, and when I shrieked in terror, he just laughed, pulled my head to his chest, and whispered, "Don't be scared." When he realized his mistake, we simply parted ways without a word, pretending nothing had ever happened. Qin Wan often asks me what I think of Jiang Jing. I always told her that Jiang Jing was a great match for her. They both came from distinguished families, possessed striking looks, and had temperaments that were either steady or passionate. By any measure, they were a match made in heaven, a perfect pair. Oh, you really think he and I are well suited? Qin Wan asked, resting her chin in her hand. Qiu, don't you think you and Jiang Jing are a good match too? Wan, don't joke like that. I've always been at peace with it, because I never once thought of having anything with Jiang Jing. Loving someone doesn't mean you have to be with them. In fact, loving someone doesn't even require an ending. Jiang Jing is my benefactor, and Qin Wan is my friend. Their happiness is my happiness. It was only later that I realized I had been reading too much into everything. Who am I? And what right do I have to be friends with these young masters and mistresses? At the graduation party, Qin Wan handed me a glass of wine with a beaming smile. She said that throughout our 4 years at university, she was grateful for my patience with her little moods, and so she wanted to toast me. I took it, had a small sip, and immediately made a face at the bitter taste of the liquor. Qin Wan started to laugh, but before she could tease me about it, she was dragged away by other friends. Jiang Jing happened to be passing by and, seeing me with the glass, casually asked, "Can you even drink?" I shook my head with a smile and replied, "Not really, I don't drink much." "Then give it to me." I was just about to say I'd already had a sip from this cup when Jiang Jing had already drunk half of it. Seeing this, I could only swallow the words that were on the tip of my tongue. Jiang Jing had been drinking but still didn't leave, and he chatted with me for a few more moments. I was puzzled, as we weren't particularly close, wondering why he'd suddenly strike up a conversation. Then I heard him say he wasn't feeling well and wanted to go back to his room to rest. My first instinct was to contact Qin Wan. "No need, I'm just a bit dizzy," Jiang Jing said, frowning as he undid the top button of his shirt. "It's a rare opportunity today, let her enjoy herself, don't disturb her." "Well, should I walk you back to your room?" I asked. More out of politeness than anything else. I was sure Jiang Jing would refuse, but he just tilted his head, thought for a couple of seconds, and nodded. "I'll leave it to you." Then, I helped Jiang Jing back to his room, and then, I never left. That drink had been spiked. I'd only taken a small sip, but Jiang Jing had drunk most of it. After a night of passion, the next day greeted me with a body racked with soreness and the sting of Qin Wan's furious slap. I was plunged into a long period of self-doubt. I prided myself on having decent morals. I wasn't the type to steal someone's love. I couldn't for the life of me understand why, in a state of supposed rationality and clarity, I hadn't refused Jiang Jing. Later, I realized the truth. I hadn't been clear-headed at all. I only took a tiny sip of the wine, but it was enough to rob me of my senses. but that fact only made the whole situation worse. Intoxication doesn't necessarily lead to indiscretion, but with ulterior motives. I had Jiangjing drink that potent liquor laced with an aphrodisiac. My designs on him were as plain as day for all to see. I became a common whore in everyone's eyes, stopping at nothing to get into Jiangjing's bed. Both Qin Wan and Jiangjing were poor souls I used and hurt. Qin Wan was the one who handed me the glass, but she was kind and naive, always treating me with utter sincerity. How could she ever have done something like delivering me to her own boyfriend's bed? Jiangjing was the one who willingly took the drink, but he did so out of simple goodwill, trying to help his girlfriend's roommate by taking the toast. How could he have anticipated I would stoop so low? They are people of noble character and integrity, the very embodiment of all that is good, so the despicable, low-life scum has to be me. It can only be me. Qinwan couldn't accept the double betrayal by her boyfriend and her best friend. She attempted suicide by slitting her wrists, was discovered in the act, and was rushed to the hospital. That's why everyone says I owe Qinwan a life. In a bad state, Qinwan turned to drink, got behind the wheel drunk, and killed someone. I owe her. So it's only right that I take the blame, and to make matters worse, I was pregnant. I truly deserve to die 1,000 deaths. I am a sinner, and the child in my womb will be born carrying my guilt. But Jiangjing was so merciful. He promised that if I atoned for my sins, he would marry me and acknowledge the child as his own. I desperately wanted to scream, but it felt as if I were surrounded by a vacuum, cutting off any chance to cry for help. Was I wrong? Do I need to atone? What was my mistake? And for what sin must I make amends? Is my child also at fault? Must they inherit and carry on my sin? I refuse to accept this. I accept all the consequences, but I cannot let my child be dragged down by me. He deserves to be born into a family surrounded by love, and to have a future full of promise. The night I signed the confession, I rested my hand on my belly for a long time. A sharp pain began in my lower abdomen and radiated out to every limb. I had a miscarriage once, and the pain was no less than that of childbirth. When the police carried me to the hospital, I could even manage a laugh. Perhaps it's fate. I, Liang Qiu, am destined to have no family ties. It seems I am meant to live out my days alone. I agreed to Jiangjing's proposal. He seems to truly value this wedding. Everything is of the finest quality, according to the wedding dress designer. Work on my Dragon and Phoenix gown began 2 years ago. The hand embroidery was incredibly time-consuming. The entire team worked overtime for nearly 3 months to barely complete it, finishing a full year ahead of the original schedule. I was dazed for a few seconds. 2 years ago, I remember. That mistake between Jiangjing and me, that was also 2 years ago. Are they really making arrangements this early? A strange thought crossed my mind, but I didn't dwell on it. Jiangjing used to ask for my opinion at first, but after realizing I didn't care about any of it, he stopped asking. He chose the design for the wedding invitations, selected the types of wedding candies, decided on the specifications for the venue. Honestly, I wanted to say, it's just a sham wedding. He really didn't need to put in so much effort. But this wedding turned out to be far more lavish than I ever expected. I don't understand Jiangjing, so I can't fathom why he insisted on having a wedding, nor why the bride absolutely had to be me. But that's okay, I don't need to understand him, I just need him to keep his promise. I want my freedom. On the wedding day, Jiangjing came to pick me up bright and early. He was wearing a custom-tailored suit, standing out as exceptionally handsome amidst the large, bustling crowd of family, friends, and photographers behind him. With no family or friends of my own, the bridal pickup had to be simple, but following tradition, Jiangjing carried me all the way, down the stairs and into the wedding car, without letting my feet touch the ground once. I didn't see any of the people who had spoken ill of me before. I suppose Jiangjing didn't want their presence to ruin the atmosphere of his wedding. Looking at the lily-of-the-valley bouquet in my hands, a faint smile touched my lips. I looked up and found Jiangjing's gaze fixed intently on me. You look so happy, he asked me. Is it because you can't wait to be free? Yes, I nodded with a smile. I really can't wait. Outside the window, the scenery rushed by in reverse, and I remembered the phone call I received last night. It was from Qin Wan. Her laugh was harsh and shrill as she said she couldn't believe Jiangjing was even willing to marry a barren woman. You know, Liang Qiu, I really despise you. From the moment I first saw you, I knew you were exactly the kind of person I hate most. On the surface, you act all aloof and indifferent, like nothing matters to you, but deep down, you know exactly how twisted you are. You've always had your eye on Jiangjing, haven't you? You should be thanking me for that drink. It gave you a legitimate shot at him. I've always known it was Qin who drugged me. If Jiangjing hadn't suddenly appeared and snatched the glass from my hand, I have no idea which man I would have woken up next to the next morning, or rather, how many men, Qinwan, I've searched my conscience, and I've never done a single thing to wrong you. You stole Jianjing from me, and you still have the nerve to say you've never wronged me. If it weren't for that glass of wine you gave me, I would never have had any contact with Jianjing in my entire life. But Jianjing loves you. Qinwan was hysterical. How could he fall for you? What do you have that I don't? Why would he choose you over me? I held the phone, completely silent. Have you never even considered this possibility? Don't tell me you still think Jianjing has always hated you. He doesn't hate you at all. He's madly in love with you. He went against everyone's wishes, stubbornly insisting on having a wedding with you. If he didn't love you, what would he possibly gain from it? If slipping Jianjing a drug was all it took to make him sleep with any woman, don't you think I would have done it already? He's been trained since childhood to resist that sort of thing. His body has a tolerance. Ordinary aphrodisiacs are completely useless on him. I hung up the phone without another word. The wedding ceremony was being held on an open lawn. The venue was decorated warmly, with beautiful flowers and balloons everywhere you looked. When I saw Jianjing standing on the platform waiting for me, for a fleeting, hazy moment, I felt as if we had truly been in love once. The officiant held the microphone and asked him, Mr. Jianjing, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, do you take Ms. Liang Qiu to be your wife, to love and to cherish her? Until death do you part? Jianjing looked at me and answered firmly, I do. Ms. Liang Qiu, do you take? I held the microphone, stared fixedly at Jianjing, and opened my mouth to answer, I do not. The audience erupted in an instant uproar. Jianjing's smile vanished completely, his face darkening as he stared at me. I removed the crown from my head and repeated, Jianjing, I will not marry you. I will not marry a man who raped me, sent me to prison, and once cut off all my means of survival. I lifted my skirt, drew the small knife strapped to my leg, and pressed it against my own throat. Liang Qiu, a flicker of panic finally crossed Jianjing's face. His arm trembled as he tried to stop me. Stay away from me. I backed away warily, the knife nicking Jianjing's arm in the commotion before I pressed it back against my own chest. I won't marry you. I won't be with you, Jianjing. Make your choice now. Do you want me dead? Or will you let me go? The crowd surged forward from below the stage, yet none dared to truly approach us. Jianjing did not clutch his wounded arm, only stared at me in silence. He remained silent, so I drove the blade in deeper. A faint stain of blood seeped through the wedding dress. Jianjing's lips trembled, and finally, with eyes shut tight, he growled, Get out. A bleak laugh escaped my lips. How pathetic. When Jianjing handed me his handkerchief, it never crossed my mind that he loved me. When he held me in his arms and told me not to be afraid, it never crossed my mind that he loved me. When he clung to me, relentlessly demanding my body, I never once thought he loved me. When he insisted I become his bride, I never once thought he loved me. When Qinwan said Jianjing loved me, I didn't believe a single word of it. But here and now, discovering that my safety is truly the only thing that can threaten Jianjing, I finally believe he actually has feelings for me. How utterly absurd. I endured so much suffering, and all of it, it turns out, stemmed from his love. How could I possibly accept that? The wedding ultimately descended into chaos. Jianjing was rushed to the hospital, and I finally gained the freedom I had always longed for. If this was a battle, the pity is that there were no winners. I bought another small headstone for my mother's grave. It bore no photograph and no name. I sent out my resume again. This time, without Jianjing's interference, I successfully joined a company and began a new life. As night fell, I left the office and bought myself a box of strawberries before heading home. The faint scent of fresh grass hangs in the air, signaling the end of the bitter winter. Spring is almost here. The end. Jianjing, an extra chapter. 1. When Jianjing was 8 years old, his mother passed away and was taken to the crematorium. All around him, adults were arguing fiercely over the inheritance and their own interests. He stood alone in the corner, his face cold and expressionless, not uttering a single word. Would you like a piece of candy? A little girl had appeared beside him at some point, her hair in neat braids, her wide, round eyes gazing at him with innocent curiosity. In her open palm lay a single white rabbit creamy candy. Jianjing didn't know her, so he had no intention of engaging. My daddy is in there too, the little girl said, pointing at the massive furnace used for cremation. Mommy says when people die, they go to another world. No, Jianjing said bluntly. The little girl didn't understand. Dead is dead. There's no other world. You don't have a father anymore, so daddy won't ever come back to see me again, right? The little girl pouted, her expression sad. Jianjing felt truly despicable, seeing his peers show sadness. He felt the weight on his heart instantly lighten. It was as if the sorrow had been transferred from himself to another through some invisible means. Who is that lying in the furnace? The little girl asked again. Jiangjing kept his eyes open and let out a shallow sigh. It's my mother. The little girl stared at Jiangjing with wide eyes. After a long moment, she stood close to Jiangjing and gently took his hand. Don't be sad, she said softly. Maybe my dad and your mom can be friends. Even if they're gone, they won't be lonely. Adults bustled all around them, their faces etched with worry, anger, or grief. No one noticed the two children in the corner. Jiangjing ate the milk candy the little girl had pushed into his mouth. He didn't know how much time had passed when, finally, his fingers twitched and he gently closed his hand around hers. There was a moment when their naive, beating hearts resonated in unison. 2. The year Jiangjing turned 18. His grandfather fell suddenly ill and was rushed to the hospital. It was a minor ailment, but the younger family members crowded around the hospital bed, practically suffocating it with their anxious concern. Annoyed, Jiangjing slipped away to the stairwell, craving a cigarette. That's when he saw the girl crying her eyes out. Someone must have passed away, he thought idly, finding the scene oddly fascinating as he watched in silence for a long while, until, in that face contorted with tears, he glimpsed a faintly familiar trace. Oh, it's her, how remarkable, she's grown up perfectly in proportion, looking exactly the same. Even more astonishing, he still remembered her, despite having met her only once. The cigarette dangled from his lips, yet he forgot to light it. Jiangjing watched for who knows how long, before finally walking over and sitting down beside her. For the first time in his life, he clumsily tried to offer comfort. It didn't seem to do much good, and in the end, he didn't even get a word of thanks. Jiangjing was thinking to himself, when we were kids, you were always grinning like a happy fool. Now that you're all grown up, how did you become so emotionally intense? 3. The freshman mixer was their third time meeting. This time, Jiangjing finally learned her name, Liang Qiu. Qiu is a type of mugwort plant. In plain terms, it's just a weed, not important, not rare, but incredibly tenacious. Jiangjing thought to himself, the name really suited the person. They exchanged contact information but never messaged each other. Liang Qiu had a good sense of boundaries and wouldn't get too close to her roommate's boyfriend. Jiangjing had unwittingly developed a habit. Every night before bed, he would open Liang Qiu's social media feed. She didn't post often, and her updates were mostly about little joys in her daily life. Yet, day after day, he repeated this ritual without ever growing tired of it. Qinwan asked him what he thought of Liang Qiu. Jiangjing's reply was, not bad. Well, do you know any decent guys around you that you could introduce to Qiu? Jiangjing's response at the time was, it wouldn't be suitable. What's the problem? Our family backgrounds don't match. Oh, come on, it's just dating. No one's talking about marriage or kids. But Jiangjing still refused. He had no interest in playing matchmaker. You're so stubborn, rejecting it so outright. I almost thought you had a thing for Qiu. Jiangjing didn't speak, his gaze just drifting lightly past Qinwan. Qinwan immediately gave an awkward smile. Sorry, I spoke out of turn, that was out of line. Jiangjing didn't have any particular feelings for Qinwan. She was an introduction from the family. If they got along well, marriage wasn't out of the question. In families like theirs, even when it comes to romance, the first consideration is always finding someone of equal social standing. So even though Jiangjing was aware of his special feelings for Liang Qiu, he never considered acting on them. That is, until the incident in the escape room. It was clear Liang Qiu was genuinely terrified of anything supernatural and quite timid, but having been dragged there by Qinwan, she had no choice but to grit her teeth and play along. At one point, she was so frightened she froze completely. Jiangjing couldn't stand it any longer. After yet another ghost suddenly jumped out to scare them, he finally reached out and pulled Liang Qiu toward him. The moment her head bumped against his chest, Jiangjing's breath caught in his throat. He felt his heart skip a beat. He and Liang Qiu had never been physically intimate before, so he had never realized just how deep one person's longing for another could be. So, it had come to this. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to hold her tight, to never let go. To crush her very essence and meld it with his own until they were one. I'm Liang Qiu, not Wanwan. I think you've mistaken me for someone else. A flustered, timid female voice broke the silence. Jiangjing snapped out of his daze and, mustering every ounce of his self-control, released his grip. His heart instantly felt hollow. In some hidden corner of his soul, Pandora's box had been quietly opened. 4. Jiangjing did not like Liang Qiu. Jiangjing detested Liang Qiu. He loathed the feeling of his emotions being so easily stirred by another person, and resented how his mind was constantly, involuntarily drawn to someone else. He was supposed to be steady, composed, and self-possessed, so when he discovered that the drink Liang Qiu had given him had been spiked, his first reaction was rage, pure, unadulterated rage. How much further do you want to push me? Is that what you want? To see me completely lose my mind? Do you really think you can handle that? As it turned out, Liang Qiu could not. She cried and struggled to escape, only for him to seize her ankle and ruthlessly drag her back. Yet beneath that overwhelming rage lay a hidden truth. A certain flaw within him had finally been perfectly mended. Playing the victim, he frantically extracted feelings of guilt and attention from Liang Qiu. He intended to crush her into the dust, only to then play the savior and rescue her. That way, she would be bound to him for life. Utterly dependent and unable to ever leave, just the thought of such a scene was enough to bring Jianjing to climax. As he passed the bridal shop, Jianjing suddenly found he couldn't take another step. He could hear his own heart pounding, thrumming with wild, exultant joy. They were going to get married, so it seemed some things needed to be prepared for right away. 5. But Liang Qiu, in the most resolute manner, terminated her pregnancy, and she refused to see anyone. That had been Jianjing's greatest bargaining chip. Liang Qiu seemed to be dying. Her life force was slipping away like fine sand. The tighter he grasped, the faster it drained. It shouldn't be this way. How could it be? The price of having her was losing her. Jianjing began to ask himself, what was it that he truly wanted? A long, long time had passed, so long that they had become strangers. He saw Liang Qiu emerge from the flower shop, cradling a bouquet of dewy, vibrant jasmine blossoms, a soft, gentle smile gracing her face. He finally understood. All he had ever wanted was for her to smile, that was all. 6. Jianjing does not like Liang Qiu. Jianjing detests Liang Qiu. Jianjing loves Liang Qiu. Yet, Jianjing does not understand what love truly is, nor how to love.